30. Good evening and welcome, commissioners, applicants, excuse me, and interested parties to the January 23rd, 2025 meeting of the Cohasset Conservation Commission. My name is Valerio Romano. I'm the chair of the commission and will be running tonight's meeting as we implement the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, Chapter 260 of the Cohasset bylaws governing wetlands protection, and Chapter 263 of the bylaws governing stormwater management. The Conservation Commission meeting is now in session and being held on Zoom. If you have any questions for the commission, please type them into the Q&A section of the Zoom application. Please include your name and address to be recognized. When called, please limit your discussion to 3 minutes. Present this evening on behalf of the commission is the town's conservation agent, Charlotte Pechtel. I will now take a roll call of the conservation commissioners. Please respond by repeating your name and saying present. Tom Bell.
Tom Bell, present.
Kathy Berrigan.
Kathy Berrigan, present.
Chris McIntyre.
Chris McIntyre, present.
And Valerio Romano, present. Tonight we have a quorum of 4 commissioners. The first matter of business tonight is the approval of previous minutes. The first minutes up for approval are the November 7th, 2024 minutes. Do I have a motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve the minutes for
November 7th.
Yeah. When?
November 7th, 2024.
November 7th, 2024.
Second.
Great, thanks, Kathy. Any discussion? A voice vote will be sufficient. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes. Next, we have the approval of the November 21st, 2024 minutes. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve the minutes for November 21st, 2024.
Tom Bell, second.
Any discussion? Voice vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion also passes. Finally, we have approval of the December 5th, 2024 minutes. Do I have a motion?
It's your turn.
I make a motion to approve.
A second? Any discussion?
Second.
A voice vote? Everybody in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion passes. We're almost caught up on our minutes, which is great.
Yeah, we're getting there.
You and the team's hard work, I appreciate that. We're really getting there. Okay, our first public hearing is continued from January 9th, 2025 for Notice of Intent 2502 for the demo and rebuild of a home at 13 Jerusalem Road. That hearing is now back in session. I believe the commission was pretty much satisfied with this application at the last hearing, but the developer had yet to receive a DEP file number. That has now been assigned. I also recall that Charlotte was to work with the Maltzes and the abutters to make sure that plantings go in so as to recreate the screening that previously existed. Charlotte, is there anything else that we should be considering? I know there's a couple conditions that if you'd like to put them up, or if the developer would like to add anything.
Yeah, I can put those up. We did kind of work through the minutes last time. I think everybody was in favor, but please correct me if you guys remember differently. It was just these 2 conditions. That the order is contingent upon the applicant obtaining all other required state and local permits from other boards, permitting authorities. No site construction shall occur until all other applicants, all other permits and approvals have been obtained, such as but not limited to ZBA and a building permit. Those are the ones we anticipated. And then number of mitigation plantings shall not be reduced, but the precise location of the proposed native shrub screen plantings in the northeastern corner of the property shall be determined on site with applicants, conservation agent, and any interested abutting property owners. Just to make sure everyone's on the same page with that. And I think last time with the hearing, I think the neighbors who were on the call, they were in agreement with that, and we couldn't close the hearing just because of the file number. I guess David, do we miss anything?
No, I agree.
Yeah.
I think that was the last really outstanding item was the file number. And like you said, you had already covered the conditions previously.
Right. Yeah.
Before we do a roll call vote, just speak up any commissioners that may have anything further to add or discuss on this application. All right, do I have a motion for an order of conditions?
I move that we issue an order of conditions for NOI 25-2 for 183 Jerusalem Road with the conditions that are posted on screen and will be entered into our minutes.
Second.
Great, motion by Commissioner Bell, second by Commissioner McIntyre. Let's do a roll call vote. Commissioner Bell,
Tom Bell, aye.
Commissioner Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Commissioner McIntyre,
Chris McIntyre, aye.
and Valerio Romano, aye. That passes unanimously. That hearing is now closed. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
You got it.
Thank you, David. Thanks, David. And I don't think we need a variance for this one. It looks like all the work was in the 100.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Next,
Kathy.
Next, we have a new public hearing in accordance with MGL Chapter 131, Section 40, the Cohasset Wetlands Bylaw, and the Cohasset Stormwater Bylaw. The Conservation Commission will open its public hearing via remote participation on Zoom for Notice of Intent 2504 and Stormwater Permit 2502 to construct a 40,500 square foot commercial facility with parking area, utilities, and grading partially within the 100-foot buffer zone at 165 Chief Justice Cushing Highway for Thomas McNulty. The public has been invited to offer input by emailing cpectol@cohassetma.gov. And details for access to the Zoom platform are on the Commission's website, cohassetma.org. The hearing is now open. Charlotte, who from the applicant team is available? Anyone to promote?
Hi, guys. Just want to make sure I have everybody. And then would either Jeff or Tom or Cam, would you guys mind introducing yourselves and affiliations for the record?
Sure, that's great. Jeff DeLisi with the law firm Armberger DeLisi Harris, representing Tom McNulty and the applicant, which is Hingham Lumber. Tom is here this evening. In addition, Cameron Gray is here this evening with us, and he's from Bay Colony Group, our engineering firm. I'm not sure, is Bill Buckley in the queue? Perhaps he might be there, and if so, we need to promote him.
Yeah, I'll keep an eye out for him. I don't see him right now.
Okay, great. So just as a backdrop, Hingham Lumber is under contract to acquire about 22 acres of land behind the building, which is behind the existing retail hardware store, that being behind the lumber building that currently exists. And a good portion of that property is unable to be developed or and is not being proposed to be developed at this time. But what is being proposed, as was indicated in the public notice, is that due to kind of the business model and the success of Hingham Lumber, which commenced its operation about 20 years ago in this location, and has grown, is probably one of the biggest employers.
Jeff, you did
You
freeze for a
have-
little bit.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, you froze for like 10 seconds.
Okay, I
Maybe less.
was just saying, and I see a note saying that my connection's unstable, which is strange because I have a wired connection. But in any event, Hingham Lumber is one of the largest employers in the town. The business model and the success of the company has caused a specific need basically for additional storage space, which would specifically be utilized as accessory to the existing business, not open to the public, but would be an area where certain overstock and large items such as doors and windows and lumber and things of that nature could be stored prior to sale. So the idea here is to construct a 40,500 square foot building behind the existing lumber building. And that's what is before the commission this evening. Previously, the commission might recall we had an ANRAD which was issued, so we know where the resource areas are located. And I can turn it over to Cameron to walk through the plan at this time.
Thank you, Jeff. Again, for the record, my name is Cameron Gray, and I am with Bay Colony Group. We prepared the site plan for the project out at Hingham Lumber. If I could share my screen, I have a couple renderings to put up that I can talk to. So if everyone can see that, that's an overview of our site at Hingham Lumber. So it's located on the southerly side of Route 3A at 165 Chief Justice Cushing Highway. So Hingham, the northeast portion of this site has been previously developed and contains the two existing buildings that Jeff was describing. So you can see the existing building up here in red, as well as the warehouse building back here in red. And we also have the existing parking areas and driveways in light gray. And again, as Jeff touched on, this site contains bordering vegetated wetlands located in the northern portion of the property and western portion of the property, which we show here in light green. So those resources have been certified through an ORAD by the commission. And our client is proposing to construct a 40,500 square foot building out back here behind the existing warehouse. So I have that building there in orange, and then the proposed pavement in dark black. So I'll scroll down to our second rendering. So the proposed building will consist of a storage warehouse with a small office component, as well as the associated parking area located to the northeast of the building here, and a shipping area located on the northern side of the building here. So a portion of this work will lie within the 50 to the 100-foot buffer zone to the wetlands. So I have the buffer zones here in red, so I'll just kind of follow it with my cursor. You can see this is the 100-foot buffer here. And it goes around the site and kind of meanders around our proposed infiltration basin. And then I have our 50-foot buffer located just inside that. So the proposed building is going to sit about 101 feet from the wetlands at its closest point, and the proposed pave area will sit about 58 feet from the wetlands at its closest point, and the grading will take place about 51 feet from the wetlands at its closest point. So in all, we're talking about 42,500 square feet of alterations taking place within that 50 to 100-foot buffer zone. So during the design process, we tried to minimize as much disturbance within the buffer zone as we could. So we were able to stay out of that 50-foot inner buffer zone. So we utilized a lot of retaining walls, which you can see on the outskirts of the site. They'll essentially hold up our grade, and we're not going to be grading down, disturbing those buffer zones anymore. So the building will be serviced by an existing water main that's located out front of the proposed building and behind the existing warehouse. And then we'll also be serviced by the existing septic system located on site. And again, we have a stub for a septic right here. So both those utilities have been sized in anticipation of this future expansion. The proposed stormwater system on site will consist of a system that'll treat the roof runoff as well as the proposed paid parking area runoff. So it'll include roof drains. I can zoom in here. So it'll include roof drains that are located around the proposed building that will be conveyed separately to the proposed infiltration basin in the western portion of the site. And the system will also include deep sump catch basins located throughout the site. So we have one down here in the corner, one in the shipping area, and one up here. And this will be conveyed separately to the infiltration basin, again, located in the western portion of the site. So in that area of the infiltration basin, we've gone in already and conducted a preliminary soil exploration to ensure that this area is suitable for an infiltration basin. This system has been designed to accept all storms up to and including the 100-year storm without increasing the rate or volume of runoff off-site. And the system will comply with all DEP stormwater standards as well as the local regulations. I don't show it on this plan, but it's shown on sheet 8 of the site plan. Sure, if I'll be able to. There we go. So sheet A of the site plan shows our erosion control for the project. So we are proposing silt sock that will be installed along the limits of work. So you can see it here in the thicker red line. And we have it around the entirety of the site. And then we will be installing silt sacks and catch basins out there also. And these erosion control measures will be installed prior to the start of construction and will remain in place until construction is complete and ground coverage has been reestablished. So that's a pretty good overview of our project. Just a few other things is we received comments from Charlotte. She gave us a pretty thorough review, so we wanted to bring the project before the commission in order to receive additional feedback. This project is also going to be going before the planning board. I believe we have it scheduled for February 5th. And as of today, we haven't received any comments from the town's consultant. So our plan is to bring this plan before all the boards in order to receive their feedback, as well as feedback from the professional staff and the town's consultant. So we may get everyone's comments and we can do one big revision to avoid just the confusion of doing numerous small revisions and resubmit it all at once. So, and then the last thing I have is we received our Mass DEP file number, but Mass DEP did make a comment regarding this project. So I've had previous discussions with Charlotte regarding this, so Charlotte, I wasn't sure if you wanted to touch base on that or.
Yeah, I can add my comments as well. And Mr. Chair, is that okay?
Yes, of course, please. Thanks, Charlotte.
Awesome. Yeah, great. No, thank you, Cam and Jeff, for the great summary of the project. So I did, as Cam mentioned, I did go through the project and I did have a handful of comments, but, figured it was best to hold off on responding to those for now so that they can address all the site plan revisions at once, since they are subject to planning board review. They will have a peer reviewer that will most likely review stormwater management and the standard compliance as part of their review. So definitely need to wait for those comments, at least for the stormwater permit that's before us. I did have a handful of comments, obviously, about, just the design and the setup, and I had some suggestions for the, keeping the site contained. And then as to the wetlands comment from DEP, the comment is referring to a GIS data layer on Mass Mapper from 2005 that shows DEP altered wetlands, and the details of the data layer mostly are concerning an analysis by DEP using aerial imagery. So they looked at imagery, I believe, from like the 90s into the early 2000s. And so they mapped what assumed to be some possible wetland alterations. I did confirm with DEP that they do not have, data on the ground from their end. There is an early submission or ANRAD that we have in our files for this area that was filed in 2002, and those plans do not yet do not show wetlands in that particular area. So what I told Cam and Tom that I would do is just, on my end, just check our archives and see if we have anything prior to 2002, just to confirm that the town doesn't have a record of wetlands in that area. So that's what I'm looking into so far. Obviously, I have to comb around in the archives a little bit, so anything I find I will bring to Cam and Tom and his team. And if there are any records of wetlands there, we can definitely look into it. But DEP's assessment was mostly done by aerial imagery. So And then I think Brad Holmes, the wetland scientist who did the delineation for the ANRAD, he did also agreed that he didn't think that there were wetlands in that area. He did look at it initially with the ANRAD, and he provided comments again when DEP brought this comment up with assigning the file number. So Brad Holmes is pretty confident there's no wetlands there. But with that, I'll defer to the commission for any further questions. But I will definitely report anything I find in the town records.
Might I add something briefly?
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Two things, just briefly. Number one, no portion, I'm being told none of the activities being proposed are located in a water resources protection area, whether that be the state identified area or the town's water resources protection zoning district. Also, I spoke with John Hallen earlier this morning, the building inspector, and he suggested that he thought it would be a good idea if if I affirmatively requested of you, and hopefully got the consent or the authorization to go ahead and install the silt sock after this meeting and before the next meeting, such that it could be inspected and kind of checked off in its location as installed. And we don't have any particular objection to that. I'm not sure, Charlotte, if you've spoken with John about it. He indicated to me that he would talk to you.
Okay.
Those are the only comments I have.
No, at least not on the silt sock. May I ask why you want to put the silt sock in now when you're still going through?
I don't know. He didn't
Okay.
explain his reasoning. I thought it was a little strange.
Okay.
Seemed a little odd to be doing it at this time.
Yeah.
Maybe he just wants. Actually, I don't know. I mean, perhaps you could follow up with him. The hearing will continue.
I'll double check. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know what it would do at this point. Because you're not starting any work. You still have to, yeah. But
Yeah,
I did
agreed.
have some conversations with Cam and Tom on site that, we may or may not want to take a look at this property as a commission, but I'll defer to them on that. And if we did do that, we'd probably want to see the staked limit of work, which would give us a good indication of where the project is. So you wouldn't need to install the silt sock per se and have it sit there for several months, but at least you would, stake that out if you had to. But those were just some on-site discussions. I didn't talk about that with John, but I'll follow up with him about the silt sock. I don't know if that's appropriate right now, but maybe
Yeah,
closer to construction for sure. So,
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
okay.
Great. With that, let's run through the commissioners. I have some questions and thoughts, but Commissioner Bell, please.
Yeah, is all of the runoff from the paved areas directed to the rain garden?
So it's gonna be all the proposed pavement that we're doing out there is directed to our infiltration basin.
Okay. I just a bit concerned about snow, presumably with embedded salt or whatever they use to de-ice is right on the edge there to run down into the wetland. So that's something of a concern of mine. I don't know whether it'd be better to store it someplace else, but it does have the potential to add salt into the wetland if it's stored there, I think. And it might be less so if it were stored nearer to the infiltration devices that you're going to use. I don't know.
Okay, is it
I don't know
this
whether that's
area?
feasible or not, and it really does depend on what you're going to de-ice with. If you're using salt, that's one thing. If you're using something that's based on urea, that's quite another. We don't want to add any nitrate to the system any more than absolutely we have to. So
Okay,
Is that it, Commissioner
aside
Bell?
from that, I don't really have any other observations that I have questions about.
Hey, Cameron, do you understand the areas did you have a follow-up question for Mr. Bell that you wanted to just clarify as to?
Yeah, I'm sorry. So are we talking about just this area up here?
No, and that, and the one just to the west of it.
Okay. So for that area, we have it graded so that way everything is pitching. And this will be a curb site, so it should stay within our site and should not run off into the wetlands. If anything, it'll go into our stormwater system.
Okay.
Cameron, how high is that retaining wall proposed to be? Above grade?
Let's see here. Go to the grading plan and I can zoom in. So the retaining walls out here could vary. So it looks like we're up about 58 feet there for finished grade. And below there, we're around 45.
So your proposed contours here are, the gradient is to the northwest. So what are you capturing this with, at the retaining wall? Is there
So,
some, drainage system that's there?
yeah, so we have a catch basin right here in this area.
And where's it going?
So that is conveyed to the drain manhole that ultimately feeds out into the infiltration basin.
Okay. And, the other side to the, northeast?
So we're proposing to leave this area existing. So I'm sorry to keep flipping back and forth here.
That's all right.
But you can see my grades, so I'm up at 61 here and our catch basin is at 51, so I have everything pitching down this way.
Right.
But up here, I understand your concern, since we're gonna be leaving this area existing. It does pitch slightly this way, but if it's stacked up, I can see.
So is it possible then to, eliminate that one and enlarge the one to the, southwest of it?
Yeah, no problem.
Excellent. Thank you.
Commissioner Berrigan?
Yes, I was wondering how many square feet of disturbance will be within the 50-foot buffer? Please.
So we're not proposing any disturbance within that inner 50-foot buffer zone. So all of our work will be taking place in between the 50 and the 100-foot buffer zone.
Okay. I'm just looking.
It's tough to see on the scale.
Yeah, that's all. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that answers my question. Thank you.
No problem.
Commissioner McIntyre?
I for one would like to walk the site. It's a pretty large scale project, and given the curious, I'm just curious to see it in person. That's pretty much it. I'm also curious why what the need is for such a large area, and why if it's feasible to stay out of the 100 altogether, stay out of the buffer zone altogether.
Miss Jeff or Cam, is that something you'd like to discuss now, or or just note Commissioner McIntyre's question as to possibly if there were some alternatives, considered ways to stay further from the resource area, why this was this was the design?
Yeah, I mean, I could have Cam might be able to briefly explain the concept behind the design. And we can in more detail explain as part of our submission that I think that the reason is because there needs to be an area sufficient for for the loading and unloading in the trucks along the side of the building, and on the rear, it's necessary for fire suppression and safety purposes to have access on all sides of the building. So I think that those are two of the primary reasons. And of course, the building is proposed to be for this specific business use, large. And a good portion of the site is outside of the 100-foot buffer zone, as you can see. But Cameron, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
No, I think Jeff, you really hit on most of the points there. We need to provide access in order for the fire trucks to get around. This area to the north, these are loading docks, this shipping area. So we need to give rooms for the trucks to come in and back up and offload or whatever it means. And then, when you go out to this site, it operates kind of as a one-way, so the trucks are proposed to pull out and they'll travel around the building and then exit the site out through here.
Looks to me like you could shave bits and pieces here to stay out of the 100 completely. I understand that you do have to be able to access things at the rear of the building. You're already out of the 100, so that's not an issue. That western corner there, you don't have much of the 100, but it couldn't possibly make any difference to trucks turning around on that bit of it. And then to the north, it's partially off screen. If you just scroll a little bit, there you go, thanks. It seems like you can stay out of the 100 there too. We're not talking about a lot of area here.
Okay, that is,
I can see the let's say the bias for drawing a lot of straight lines here and few curves. But you've got a corner here and a margin there. Why not just stay out of it completely? Is it really going to make a difference to the operations here?
So
You haven't made a very strong case in my mind about trucks turning around, for example, on that western corner. Can't believe that could possibly make a difference for trucks entering and leaving. You might be able to make a better case for the larger area that you're taking up on that northern part between the two snow areas. But honestly, I'm not convinced yet that that's really necessary.
We'll take a harder look at that, Mr.
Good.
Bell.
Yeah, on a large scale project like this, sometimes we like to see, at least the thought process, but for alternatives to stay as far away from the resource area as possible. And I mean, everything, it seems like you could really stay out of it except for the infiltration basin, right? Is there another place you could put that? Could that be sort of to the northwest of the building and tuck that in further from the buffer as well, and just sort of kind of reconfigure it? And so that just thinking through what is really sticking into the into the 50, and it doesn't go past the 50. It seems like you're right up on the 50 though, right? So the limit of work is like literally touching the 50-foot line. There may be some impact to the 50. So maybe if not coming back with another plan, at least going through the motions of explaining how alternatives were considered and why we came up with this. But I definitely echo Commissioner Bell's thoughts here and observations about how it's really shaving off really nominal portions that don't seem like they necessarily have a business use to keep it various areas of this out of the 100 at least.
Yeah, I mean, our primary goal here was keep it out of the 50, right? So we're outside of the local jurisdiction and the need for variance and all that comes with that. And I think the concept was to design this within your jurisdiction, but further from the 50 in a manner that meets the performance standards under the regulations. having said that, I understand what your comments are, and we will go back and consider those most certainly.
That would be great. Commissioner McIntyre, any other thoughts, comments, questions?
Yeah, yeah, just regarding, I mean, the 50, the comment that the primary concern was to stay out of 50. I mean, the 50 is definitely held to a higher standard of protection, but the 100 is a buffer zone as well. So if there's a, you know, if we can stay out of it and on such a large plot of land, that will be looked for alternatives. Secondly, I just want to note that we don't typically receive notes from DEP in the nature of the note regarding like concerns about wetlands alterations. So that's another thing that I would like to, you know, look further into. And so again, I think I'd like to take a look in person, see what it looks like. So I would push for a continuance and savings.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, I think the developer realizes that this is going to be continued for a further hearing. I know that Charlotte at least wants to walk the site. I second your request to walk the site, Commissioner McIntyre. So if that would be possible, I'd love to. I'd be happy to do that whenever, you know, it can get set up. We definitely want the limit of work staked out, probably the corners of the proposed structure staked out. Maybe, you know, the area of the catch basin staked out, and maybe some observation as to where the 50 is as well. If we were to do a site walk, those would be my thoughts. Another question that I had, if you're done, Chris.
Yes, thank you.
Another question that I had was, and I might be missing it in the materials. It seems like there's going to be a lot of trees coming out. They're marked. Do we have a full accounting of trees and sort of a mitigation landscaping plan for how we're going to you know, put these back somewhere?
So that was one of Charlotte's comments. I do not have a count of trees, unfortunately, so that was something I planned on addressing with her, and we can move forward with that.
Okay, great. Yeah,
Cameron,
that's a. Go ahead. Sorry.
I'm sorry about that. Cameron, I thought that you located 12 caliper trees out there. Am I wrong about that?
Yeah, so you can see on the plan, we've gone out and the survey crew did locate trees 12 inches and above. But yeah, I didn't get a count of how many are within the buffer zone that we're gonna be pulling out due to our work. So I know that was one of Charlotte's comments. She would like to see an actual account, and I forget what sheet. I think
Yeah, thank you, Kim. It's a Jeff, it's a tough thing that we are you know, differentiating between our two bylaws. So the stormwater bylaw, the requirements, or the regs, the requirements are to survey any trees of 12-inch caliper above, you know, to be removed or, you know, or remain. But for the wetlands buffer zone, even though we don't necessarily have a minimum caliper size, we do care about all vegetation being removed in buffer zones. So there's a little bit of a difference there with surveying that can obviously get tricky sometimes. So I did talk about that with Cam and Tom on the site, that we may want to see more of the trees, especially the ones in the 100-foot buffer that would need to come out. I don't know if the commission, I mean, again, we don't have a formal minimum size requirement, but I've seen 4 inches, I've seen 6 inches, I've seen, you know, anywhere from 4 to 6 is pretty, you know, standard or expected from what I've seen on other plans. But, you know, outside of the 100-foot buffer, the minimum requirement under our regs is just 12 inches and above.
For the stormwater.
For stormwater, yes, for any areas outside of the 100-foot buffer. And then for inside the buffer, it's all vegetation.
Yeah, I understand the
Yeah.
concurrent jurisdiction and the issue. It's really just a question of getting direction from the commission as to what you want us to locate And of course, we'll do it for you. So.
Yeah, and this is really something that we've been really making an effort at being very consistent and universal between all the developers that are in front of us, particularly within the 100 and within the 50. It doesn't look like you're doing work within the 50, but it's so close to the 50. I suppose I'd like to be certain that no trees are coming out there as well. Excuse me. And so, pretty much all vegetation, that you'd be removing, we'd at least like to have an accounting of it, and then we could figure out a mitigation plan as to where it's going to go back. Typically, anything that's within the 100, we'd like to have a 1-for-1 replacement. Anything within the 50, we'd like to have a 2-for-1 replacement for mitigation. So that would be kind of what we're looking for. Any commissioners want to sort of correct me or add in anything on that? Okay, and then I guess another question I had is, can you explain a little bit more how much regrading needs to be done to the site to get the runoff the way you want, and what's under there? Are you going to be chipping and blasting? Is it digging? Is it really just tell me what the sort of construction is going to be going on there to get the site graded so that stormwater will work the way you're envisioning here on this plan?
Before you go into that, Cameron, just Mr. Chair, you mentioned developing a mitigation plan on the revegetation issues.
Yes.
I looked, and I'm trying to figure out, and we're happy to formulate, a response to that. Is there any particular, does the commission have any guideline on that type of mitigation other than 1-for-1 and 2-for-1? Is there anything that we can look at to kind of guide us in developing that type of plan?
We have a native tree and plant list as well, so that you can put things that are native to the area. And then particularly when you're replanting, I always like to use we don't want it to look like some manicured sort of Versailles. We want to keep sort of a natural look, so when you're putting things back in, not lining them up perfectly, just keep it natural. Those are the kinds of things we're looking for. It is something that all of us, are constantly thinking about ways to improve our bylaw on, but this is really the way we've been approaching it universally for everybody. So yeah, and Charlotte, looks like you might have had something to add there.
Yeah. I mean, as our chair mentioned, utilizing the native species list, we actually have 2 specifically for the trees in the 100. Outside of the 100, that's kind of outside of our purview for stormwater. But and then obviously naturalize, putting trees that are similar to the area that would probably ensure the best survival is another BMP that we usually look at. We don't obviously want to put species in there that are just going to die. So anything that's already, native to the area that's already existing there. Obviously not putting in trees right now, like the ash trees that are susceptible to disease. I mean, there's a lot of trees now that are susceptible to various diseases at this point, but definitely choosing, species from our list has been our standard, naturalized design, not obviously putting them all in a row as our chair mentioned. And, in terms of the planting as naturally in the site as possible and trying to minimize the amount of brush and vegetation that's removed for plantings, because obviously that, of course, would defeat the purpose of restoring the area with mitigation plantings. So trying to do it as naturally as you can. That may involve a little bit of work with trying to find space that works for trees, plantings in the buffer zones, because obviously there's ledge out there. So that may involve a little bit of thinking there. We've done various conditions of working with the agent or having, wetlands or restoration professionals if it's more of a concern, I think, from the commission of just plopping a couple trees here and there. If they want to see more fleshed out plan, it's up to the applicant, but sometimes you can work with, someone like Brad Holmes for planting plans. And we've seen several of his plans before that the commission has approved for other projects. So those are kind of like adding a little bit more to the chair's recommendations. That's usually what we're looking for replacement and mitigation in the buffer zone.
That's very good input, Charlotte. Thank you. Does the commission ever consider in inappropriate circumstances, off-site mitigation, donation of vegetation, like, is that something that is if appropriate, that the commission, and when I say if appropriate, your point to revegetating the the area of the buffer zone where there is impact and removal. And I think that you kind of alluded to it, Charlotte, that it's a little challenging, or it might be challenging on this site to find the space to do that. And so I guess I was wondering if it were appropriate, whether the commission would be amenable to something offsite.
Yeah, I mean, Charlotte, I obviously, defer to you, you've been at it longer. But yes, we would. I mean, it's really just to, it's really for Cohasset at large and really the earth at large that we do this. So if there's a reasonable suggestion that can be done offsite, we won't be opposed to that. Obviously, we prefer that, as much as you can do on site. But if it's something that you can execute on and you can show us that you can, then I don't think there'd be any reason not to approve such a mitigation plan.
There was one site where, we were looking at where there wasn't any real space to put the trees. So we did have, it was part of an enforcement order. We did agree with the owners that they could, donate money to the town to plant native trees on a town-owned parcel in the buffer zone. So I think that would be like, if the commission was open to considering that, I think, we'd probably have to just see that there's, no adequate space to either put back some or all of the trees. And if that's the case, if, the applicant can think of another parcel that either they own that's in the buffer zones, or, town parcels that might be suitable for that are in the buffer zones. I think that's really what we'd be looking for. So obviously not just making a donation to the town, because DPW has their own policies on street tree plantings and they do not use the same list that we do. So the value of replacing in the buffer zone is important here. But yeah, we did consider that for one other property where they didn't have the space, and we worked with them to find another parcel in the town that was suitable.
That's really good to know, and we'll take a serious look at this issue.
It does look like there are opportunities here to plant an awful lot. You have a new catch basin, and you can certainly plant, not obviously in the bottom of it, but on its sides, which would probably be to your benefit anyway, to stabilize those slopes. It looks like there's an area too, I could be mistaken about this, but an area between the existing warehouse and the new one. There may be some room there to do something.
Yeah, that's not within the buffer zone, but I understand.
Yeah, so rather than go off the property,
Yep.
Once you've exhausted all the possibilities within the buffer zone on the property, then you can make a case that you can do it on the property but outside of the buffer zones. It's really unclear how the town can deal with these offsite replacements and whether they actually serve any purpose. So
We'll say the staffing at DPW is slim. So if we were to consider offsite mitigation, I feel like it would have to be considered to provide additional funds for a contractor to come in and do it, because relying on DPW, they're minimally staffed enough as it is, and most of their tree services and stuff is mostly used for maintenance and cutting down trees. I'm working with them on a grant to plant trees in town, but that's already a stretch, even though it's only 23 trees. So that's just something to keep in mind for the commission, not necessarily for this project, but relying on our internal staffing for planting trees as part of mitigation. Yeah, I mean, I can continue to talk to them about it. I think we might just need to consider that with other options of other people planting them or something.
Or if there's other
I think
property.
you'd also have to consider purchasing the property that you were going to plant off-site trees. So
Mhm.
I'm not sure you want to go there.
Right, you'd have to like, yeah, either another parcel that the applicant owns, or you'd have to work with me to find a town-owned parcel that we could maybe plop some trees on in the buffer zone in a similar BVW scenario. So yeah, just something to think about, Jeff, obviously with Tom and Cam, but might get a little, you know.
You've given us a lot to think about and some good direction. Thank you very much.
So let me ask my final question here. Commissioner McIntyre, did you have something? It looked like you came off mute.
Yeah. No, I was just gonna say that I think it doesn't have to be this, this project plan area. There's wetlands on this property. It could be inside the 50. I mean, I think we could. I think there's options, and I think the first consideration we would like to see is trying to stay out of the 100 altogether. If you can do that, some of this planting stuff just goes away.
But it doesn't look like the infiltration basin will, I mean, is any way to keep that out of the 100, right? I'd defer to Jeff and Cameron on that, but it looks like, I don't know. I mean, without a major sort of redrawing of this, that's going to be within the 100. Is that right?
Yeah, I think Tom, if I heard him correctly, kind of like there are probably some opportunities to find some space to move things out of the jurisdictional area altogether. Recognizing that we probably couldn't move the whole thing out, but and so we'll take a look at that. Your points are very well made.
Okay. And then just to point, I mean, and obviously it looks like there's a lot of space between the existing warehouse and this proposed new one. I mean, I don't know what's there and the limitations of construction and what you need for access and whatnot, but if you drag the whole thing closer, I don't know if that gets you out of the 100 and much further away from the 50. But I know that you guys have designed this. But I guess that goes to my last question. So what's up there? Is there going to be a lot of ledge removal? What are you going to be doing construction-wise in order to make this water flow the way that you hope it will?
So I can go to our grading plan. And I'll give you a better idea of what's going on out there.
Yeah.
So we're trying to hold this warehouse up at the finished grade that's already existing on this site in order to easily utilize it for the proposed trucks to come in. So when I was doing my stormwater, I essentially tried to hold the finished grade of the existing building and then create almost bullseye, I guess you would say, and pitch my stormwater to my catch basin. So I have my catch basin over here, and you can see my grades pitching back. And then this loading dock goes down. So there really wasn't anything I can do there. So I had that one catch basin catching all the material there. And then same thing, I kind of pitched everything I could going towards this catch basin in the rear corner. So I didn't want any of my runoff to go towards the existing building or the existing pavements. That way I'm not putting any strain on the existing system that's already there. I wanted everything from our proposed site to be going into our proposed infiltration basin. So this site, we utilized a lot of retaining walls, as I said earlier. So we're gonna be holding this grade up. So when we go out and do the site walk, you'll see that it slopes down pretty significantly in here. So we're trying to hold everything up on this portion of the site. And then by the time we get over here, there's an existing retaining wall you'll see that kind of holds back the hillside up here. So it'll be a combination of cuts and fills on this site. I don't anticipate any ledge up here.
Okay. All right, great. Well, I mean, I look forward to the site walk. Do you think it's worth quickly recapping, the input, or do you guys feel like you have it and, we can figure out a date to continue the hearing to?
So I don't think a recap is necessary. I've been taking good notes, and this is a recorded hearing, so we'll probably all be looking at it again anyway. I think our focus now ought to be selecting a date for the onsite, or at least a mechanism to create a date for the onsite, and then a new date for the hearing, and then kind of the goal to move these types of applications along. And I know that this commission does not have a peer review engineer. But we're going to endeavor to get our comments to Charlotte, not a day or two before the hearing. We'd like to do so in a timely fashion so she can look at that and provide additional input prior to the next meeting. And obviously, we're probably, because I would expect that the planning board's peer review consultant, that being Weston and Sampson, is probably going to do some form of look into the stormwater, the stormwater plan, so to speak, on the site. And if that is the case, we're going to need to kind of incorporate that as well. So we're going to have a hearing with them on the 5th of February, and that is going to help to further direct us. So I think that our next meeting ought to be probably sometime in the beginning of March, unless I hear, an opinion to the contrary from anyone on the commission or Charlotte.
Yeah, on site, we did discuss, we have a meeting on February 27th. It would have been the 20th, but we pushed it back a week because of school vacation. And then we technically have 2 back-to-back meetings. So there's February 27th and March 6th, and then everything else evens back out throughout the year with the 2 weeks. But, so, up to everyone, if you think, either the 27th or March 6th is sufficient to have enough time to, get the commission out here on the site, address all the comments, go through the peer review with planning board. Whatever.
Let me jump in for 1
If it
sec.
doesn't work, you can always change it. So.
One thing, we haven't requested, a third party or peer review for this project yet, and presumably, hopefully, we don't have to. But as Charlotte and Commissioner McIntyre pointed out, it's rare that we get DEP comments back, and that one we would like to have, a little more fleshed out and resolved as to whether there was any wetlands fill in the past. Is the wetlands consistent? So I know we didn't want to sort of belabor a recap, but when the mention of us having a peer review for Concom came up, it jarred that in my memory. So I know that I think the commissioners are interested in figuring out, exactly what that comment's about and what sort of happened over the last 20 years that gave pause, despite the ANRAD, to the DEP. So hopefully that can be at least explained better.
Mr. Chair, would you or the commissioners potentially be open to having Brad Holmes join the site? He did provide the comments, at least initially, to us based on DEP's comment, and he was the one who obviously delineated the wetlands for the ANRAD. I don't know if that's a possibility the commissioner or the applicant's willing to entertain to, have Brad join us out there at the site visit if we're going to be looking at the area.
It's really up to for me, it's up to the developer's team, who they want to have, out there and help us understand this. We've worked with Brad, he's great, but I'm not, I just want to understand.
We were planning on having Brad at the site walk anyway.
Okay. I just did somebody fill wetlands back there? I don't know. And that's, that's sort of, that's kind of like the in between the lines sort of thing, inference. And so I just would like to just have that sort of fleshed out a little bit and described to us. And as far as scheduling the site visit, Charlotte does a pretty good job, sort of interfacing between you guys once you have, the limit of work staked and the corners of the building staked. And for me, I think the infiltration basin staked, but I also don't want to forget about Commissioner Bell's, input here, that there may be some amendments to the plan that's in front of us that's going to get certain portions of this out of the 100 and maybe even further away from the 50. So it's up to you guys to kind of bring all those things together and kind of give us the next step here. But when we get out there, we'd like to know what we're looking at. So, and Charlotte's great at interfacing between us and you guys on picking that date.
So Cameron, are you able, you know, we would obviously need kind of like a ballpark back of the napkin timeframe on the staking. My thought process is that we're gonna need all the time that we can to address some of these items. And so I would think that the hearing at the beginning of March would probably be the most appropriate date. And as far as the site visit, I have to defer to Cameron on that.
Yeah, I would agree that the beginning of March would probably be beneficial for us. It's gotta take a little bit to get through everyone's comments, and we wanna make sure we're addressing everything. And as for the site walk, I can coordinate with Charlotte. I just need to see when we can get our survey crew out there to mark everything. So I'll make sure that the limit of works marked, the proposed structure. We can mark the infiltration basin. And then I mean, if there's anything else, I can just ask Charlotte, or if you could let Charlotte know, so that way I make sure everything's already set for you guys when we all go out there.
Yeah, you're probably gonna want to
Charlotte-
be able to mark the 50-foot buffer strip as well.
Yeah,
Okay.
Charlotte has a good idea of what we like to see.
Yeah, I'll send you a list, Cam, and I can coordinate with you guys offline. And I don't get involved in planning's peer review, but sometimes I do pass my comments along to the planning board in terms of anything related to stormwater. So if you guys are open to that, I can do that. And then that might kind of coordinate the review a little bit, or at least give the peer reviewer a heads up that the commission requested some, you know, analysis to kind of consider moving some of the work out of the 100 if at all possible, or moving it further away from the 50. So I think if, you know, if you want me to pass those comments along to planning board, or if you want to relay it to them directly, just let me know. But yeah, happy to coordinate you guys for the site visit.
Perfect. Okay, thank you.
So if that's it for this, I guess let's continue it to March 6th. And we look forward to a site walk and potentially, you know, slightly refigured, you know, redrawn plans to stay for, you know, keep out of the 100 even. Anything else from the applicant? From you guys, Jeff, Cameron?
Not at the moment, thank you.
Thanks so much for your time tonight. This hearing is continued until March 6th.
Okay. Have a great night.
Thanks, guys.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Okay, moment, guys. Next, in accordance with MGL Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Cohasset Wetlands Bylaw and our Stormwater Bylaw, the Commission will open its public hearing being held via Zoom for Stormwater Permit 2503 to demolish and rebuild a single-family dwelling, reconfigure the driveway, and install new subsurface infiltration, septic, and utility systems at 34 Rocky Lane for Christian Davis. The public has been invited to offer input by emailing cpectel@cohassetma.gov. Details for access to Zoom are on the commission's portion of the cohassetma.org website. The hearing is now open. Charlotte, anybody from the applicant team to promote?
Hi, guys. So we have Christian Davis, the applicant, and Paul Gunn, the engineer from Morse Engineering.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes.
Give me 1 second, I'll share my screen.
And just quickly, Paul, is there anybody else to promote for this project, or Christian? Anybody else, like an architect or something, or? No?
Nope, it's just Christian and I tonight.
Awesome, thanks.
All right, so just again for the record, my name is Paul Gunn. I'm a civil engineer with Morse Engineering, here representing the applicant for the stormwater permit application for the raise and rebuild of a single-family dwelling located at 34 Rocky Lane. The site today currently consists of a single-family dwelling with associated decking, hardscaping, a paved driveway, and a rear yard septic system. The property is a mixture of wood, brush, and lawn areas with sporadic outcrops of exposed ledge. There are not currently any stormwater controls at 34 Rocky Lane. Runoff from the site currently discharges directly to the roadway, where it's collected by the drainage system. that was put in when Rocky Lane was initially constructed. That drainage system ultimately discharges to a basin at the end of the lane. The applicant is proposing to demolish and replace the existing single-family dwelling. The new dwelling would be more centered on the lot and would include an attached garage, new subsurface utility connections, and a new septic system. The project would result in a slight decrease in impervious area, and the total disturbance on the property for the completion of the project would be about 25,000 square feet. Stormwater from the site is proposed to be collected and infiltrated from the new roof and driveway by 2 series of dry wells embedded in crushed stone. These driveways' purpose is to reduce the rates and volumes of stormwater leaving the site, as well as providing the required recharge and treatment volumes. During construction, it's proposed to control erosion and sedimentation through the use of a stabilized construction entrance, a combination of a mulch sock and siltation fence at the limit of work and around trees that are to remain, and silt sacks on nearby catch basins within Rocky Lane. I believe that's all I have for the initial presentation. I'll turn it back to the commission for question and comment. Thank you.
Excuse me. Commissioner Bell?
What's the green line?
Yes, so the green line is a nearby wetland resource area that I believe is associated with the drainage basin that receives the runoff from Rocky Lane. That line was delineated, I believe, in 2023 as part of another project we did on Rocky Lane, but it's a delineation from 2023 for a bordering vegetated wetland.
And so I'm sure you must have the buffers drawn on here, but I don't recognize them.
Oh, sorry. So that green line is the 100-foot buffer to that resource area.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so there's no buffer zones on the actual locust property.
This is only a stormwater application, right? There's no notice of intent here.
Yeah, precisely.
Yeah, but there's a line on there that I didn't
Yeah.
recognize. I don't really have any questions about it. I assume you make your numbers here with your infiltration chamber and et cetera. And you have a
Yes,
septic system going in, which is the one on the left, I take it, right?
Yes, so the septic system's the one on the left, and then you have the 2 dry wells on the right, and we are reducing both rates and runoff volumes of
Okay, so
stormwater.
here's what I don't see. I don't see a test pit at your infiltration chamber. So
Absolutely. So
that's a requirement.
sure thing. We're more than happy to provide that. At the moment, we have about 4 test pits for the septic that all showed very consistent material. And we did do some probings essentially to determine the depth of ledge beneath where the systems, the drywall systems will be going. But we can also provide a test pit as well.
Yeah, definitely within the margins of where you propose to put your chambers. Not to one side or the other, but smack in the middle probably is the best way to go here.
Absolutely, we can provide that.
Commissioner Berrigan?
I'm looking at where it says the 400-foot setback from Sanctuary Pond. Is the pond to the north of that?
No, it would be to the southwest of that. That setback is actually in relation to a Board of Health regulation. Any septic systems, any leach fields specifically within 400 feet of various water bodies in Connecticut, Cohasset, this one in particular, Sanctuary Pond, are required to have nitrogen removal septic systems, which we provided through the use of a fast tank.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner McIntyre?
Oh, and I'm so sorry, real quickly,
sorry.
Paul, based on one of my comments, I did follow up with the Board of Health Director. She said there's no like variance or anything that you guys would need to keep the treatment tank partially within the 400-foot setback. But Board of Health will review it. Just wanted to give you that quick answer that it doesn't seem like there's any restrictions there, but it would just be pending approval of Board of Health.
Commissioner McIntyre?
Why are you cutting down all the trees?
So, as the trees in the rear of the lot and then off to the left, are primarily being removed just for the installation of the new septic system and then the dwelling. The applicant's looking to remove those front street trees. Those trees were planted originally along with when Rocky Lane was constructed. At this point, they're all they're pine there with very shallow root systems, and they've been having a lot of trouble with limbs falling during almost every major storm event. So they were hoping to remove them in regards just for the risk they pose to the new dwelling. They've also, at this point, the trees are quite wide, especially their lower branches, and they actually, a few of them, especially by the driveway, hang over Rocky Lane, which poses the dual risk of either limbs falling or we heard from one of the abutters that a lot of times they'll get snow falling off the limbs and into Rocky Lane, which can occasionally create obstructions. So that's why they were seeking to remove those trees. As part of the project, they are proposing 8 new plantings of trees, as well as several arborvitaes on the right-hand side for additional screening.
So is it a total of 8 12-inch caliper trees that are coming out? 12 inches?
No. No. So currently it's proposed to remove 19 12-inch caliper graded trees, and we're proposing to plant at the moment 8 new trees as well as I believe 6 arborvitaes.
Oh, sorry to interrupt, Chris.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I just see a lot of red X's and
Yeah, if I may, the trees out front, those pines that Paul was talking about, like my parents live next door and we work right down the road, and literally every windstorm my dad's like, hey, can you get a couple guys up there? There's branches in the street, and there's right now if you go up there, there's limbs, that have fallen on the roof from that snowstorm. So those ones, we wanted to get rid of, and then obviously I'm open to whatever you guys, suggest or say to put back. But to me, it was more of a safety thing. Falling branches during windstorms is not something I want to be worried about.
Is that something that can be accomplished by trimming the trees versus just taking out the whole live tree?
Yeah, I talked to Andy Spalt from Total Tree Care, and I said, "What do you think of these?" And he was like, "They're going to be a nightmare." So I can defer back to him and ask him on that, but I think they've run their course without being a tree expert. But I've just seen, I grew up there I 30 years living there, and every windstorm, the neighbors would be out there. They'd be on their roof trying to get a limb down, and then we'd be cleaning up the street, from Rosano Davis. A couple of our guys, we'd go up there and do that. So I don't know directly if we could just trim them back. It's a good question.
yeah, and in general, we typically like to see tree assessments done by folks that aren't getting paid to cut the trees down. Not saying anyone's got a conflict of interest, but we like to get some independent assessments if possible. And yeah, I mean, this is outside our jurisdiction, and but we do try to look to save trees where we can. So if there's any opportunity to minimize clear cutting, that's favorable to us.
And the 12 inches and above under the stormwater regs, we do have some jurisdiction over.
Right.
And so it sounds like you said there's 18 coming out. Is that what I heard? I'm sorry.
19.
19. Okay. I didn't really, I mean, the fact that you're diminishing the amount of water that's coming off the site, is favorable to me. Are you expanding? It's a raise and rebuild. Are you expanding the foundation though to include the garage? Like what's the change from the original foundation to what the new building will have?
So the current footprint, it's just a single family dwelling with no either attached or detached garage. So we'd be providing a new dwelling with an attached garage. The change in footprint between the existing and proposed building is about going from about 1,400 square feet to 2,400 square feet, give or take, in terms of roof area. So that would be the building plus the the small porches that we have proposed here on the front and the sides. But all new runoff from the roofs are proposed to go to one of the dry well systems.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have, at least for me, I've limited comments. I just, would be mindful of the tree situation. I'm not exactly sure the best way to proceed on that. Charlotte, I know you, in your suggested conditions, you just sort of had trees as a thought. You also, they discussed the nitrogen issue with the septic, which we've already talked about. How do you think we should proceed on this tree? The tree concern that Commissioner McIntyre expressed.
Yeah, with stormwater, it's much less like of because we don't have like a replacement requirement in our regs, but obviously for projects that are removing a handful of vegetation or modifying the tree line significantly, it definitely comes up in conversation. And Christian, happy to work with you. I don't know if you want to visit the site. My other suggestion is Total Tree does work with somebody in town who is a local tree expert. So I don't know if that person specifically has looked at the trees. Like maybe there's some trees maybe more off to the corner that might not be as much of a concern for the home, but maybe obviously the ones closer are. So if it's any consideration to, as you've heard from the commission, they're just kind of, interested in that assessment. Just being mindful of if you can keep some, great. But whatever you want to do, I'm happy to work with you offline, or if you want me to go to the site with you, or if you want to, speak to the a tree person or an arborist or someone, then I think that would be helpful for the commission just based on their comments tonight.
Okay.
Let me ask you guys, the developers, what other, and I probably should know this and I apologize, what other municipal boards do you still have to go to?
Just the Board of Health, and that's just because we're proposing what's technically classified as an innovative alternative system, the chambers, even though they're probably the most common system being put in right now. But just the Board of Health, I believe that meeting is February 3rd.
And Paul, I believe, sorry, I was trying to look through your comments, but did Christian speak with the building inspector of whether or not you would need planning board review for any ledge removal, just given their recently passed stricter?
Yeah,
Yes.
Andy did too. And I think, Paul, you talked to John, right, as well?
I talked to John Hallen this morning, showed him the revised site plan, and he said it wouldn't be required.
Okay. Good to know. Thank you.
Can you describe, my own curiosity, what's going on with ledge removal and how the site's being changed?
Absolutely. So right now we're proposing just ledge removal associated with the installation of the foundation and the attached garage. The big change, there were quite a few changes. I think they were made in this last October to the ledge bylaw, but I think it altered some of the requirements in regards to ledge removal, in regards to like driveways and things of that nature. But the exemptions for single family home foundation installations remain, as well as with attached garages.
Okay, and you don't have to do any ledge removal for the driveway?
No, just for the attached garage and the foundation.
Okay. I mean, commissioners, what's your pleasure? I mean, the only thing I certainly would love to, hear, a more solid sort of assessment as to how we could preserve the trees, although, not trying to put my foot down and slow down the project. Would it be a major inconvenience for you guys to speak to, an arborist, possibly one that isn't trying to get work to cut down the trees, regarding an assessment of what can be trimmed and what can be salvaged, and continue this once, for some further discussion on that?
Yeah,
The test pits, sorry. Yeah.
Tom on
pits.
in the test pits too. Yeah. So either way, we're gonna have to come back. So maybe we could do the tree thing. Sorry, Christian, you were speaking.
No, my bad for cutting you off. Yeah, I'm not opposed to any of that. It's Andy was more of a friend, like, hey, are these safe? Like I wasn't hiring to cut them down. But I mean, I'm obviously new to this. What's the rule? Like, if we want those pines to come down, I mean, I'll plant 30 other trees where they went. Like, obviously, the more trees, the better. I don't know better. The pines, to me, like, if I have my kids coming home, like, I don't want to be worried about a tree limb falling down. And again, if we can cut them back, sure. I just know of living there for 30 years. You can cut them back all you want. I mean, every time you go there tomorrow and you'll see them all sticking out of the snow. We already pulled them off the street. So what's the rule? Like if we are able to take the pines down and plant 20 trees in their place, like, is that feasible, or is there some, like, sorry, I'm very naive to all this.
No, I'm not trying to make you, I don't think we are trying to make you plant, 20, trees in their place. That we're not trying to go overboard but I think more just an assessment as to what you really need to take down. Commissioner McIntyre, you brought this up in the first place. Do you have any other thoughts on it?
Yeah, no, I would just say that the stormwater calculations are not perfect. Trees do a lot to mitigate stormwater as well. And safety is obviously a concern. So if replanting is an option, that's definitely favorable to us, rather than just seeing a plan that shows removal. If there's some plan to replant, that always makes it easier for us. So that's all I'd say. Yeah.
Gotcha.
And yeah, Christian, sorry, I'll just quickly add that, like, under the stormwater regs and bylaw, we don't necessarily have a formal process. It's more of like a discussion like we're having now, especially like if several large caliper specimens are being removed, because as Commissioner McIntyre mentioned, like trees do, it may not be as it's hard to do in the modeling, and Paul can speak on that with HydroCAD, like coverage, obviously, of trees versus grass versus impervious surface. They all have different curve numbers, but just as a general function, like trees do provide some stormwater, management and infiltration and water quality improvements, obviously, versus traditional just grass and, landscaped, ornamental trees. So, it is a general comment in stormwater permits to sometimes look at stuff like this, especially if it's a lot of large trees coming out. So it's more of like an informal discussion per se. So, again, happy to touch base with you offline, but it seems like the commission really just wants to kind of see an assessment of if you need to or have to or want to take the trees out. And, I think replacement is a little bit more of an informal topic here. So.
Okay, so next steps would be doing that test pit,
Yep.
and then talking to, would you be able to email me the name of, because it was Andy Spall. I don't know who his
Yeah.
call.
Yeah. I'll relay that to you. And it doesn't have to be that particular person. It could be whoever you want to.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I guess Paul, does the removal of these trees affect your numbers for stormwater calculations at all?
Yeah, so we did take that into account. Generally speaking, going from woods to grass is actually one of the hardest things to deal with in stormwater modeling. The curve numbers are not too different, but usually you're doing a large area, so it can definitely be detrimental. The only areas I really modeled as woods here for the existing conditions is this area on the left-hand side. So that area going from woods to grass was accounted for. The street trees, because they didn't really have any underbrush or anything of that nature, I actually called those grass in the existing conditions just to be a bit more conservative. But yeah, that's certainly something we take into account when looking at, runoff volumes and times of concentration and things of that nature.
Okay. All right. So
I'd like to point out that there are 2 infiltration chambers, and I believe Mr. Davis used the singular when he talked
Yes.
about test pit.
We'll be doing test pits.
Each of those needed at least 1 test pit.
Absolutely.
A minimum of 2 here.
great. So I thanks, Commissioner Bell. So how do you guys want to pick a date for a further hearing, and you could come back with, just maybe a more specific discussion as to, if you of what the status of the trees is, what you plan on taking out, what really needs to come out. What obviously safety is primary, especially if kids are going to be around. We're not trying to keep trees there that be unsafe. And then also the test pits. Whenever you guys think you could have that information by, let's pick a new date, and we'll continue this till then.
Or I guess, Paul, speaking generally, do you have an estimate of when the test pits might be able to be done, like within the next few days, a week, couple weeks? Like, what are you thinking roughly?
I think we could definitely figure it out within a week. I don't think that would be an
Okay.
issue at all.
Okay, so our next upcoming meetings are February 6th and February 27th. And obviously, even if you pick a date, Christian and Paul, if it doesn't work for you, can always just email me and we can change it. But do you want to go with the 6th, just keeping in mind that any revised documents would be due a week before the meeting? Or do you want to play it safe and do the 27th? What are you guys thinking?
I'm turning
I-
30 on the 5th, so the 6th sounds good. It'll be a good birthday thing to
There you
celebrate. with.
I think we'll be able to get you everything by the 6th, and that also works just because we should be squared away with Board of Health by then as well.
Okay, sorry, just with like revised plans and stuff, we typically want to see that like at least a week
A week
before.
ahead. Yep.
That's still okay?
Yeah, and if it's not, I'll let you know well ahead of
Okay.
time if it doesn't look like it'll pan out.
Okay, all right, that sounds good. And yeah, obviously if it changes, just let us know. But okay, sounds like
sure thing.
2/6.
Thank you.
That's great. Okay, so this is continued till February 6th, 2025. Thank you very much for your time. We'll see you then.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Welcome. Good
Thanks,
night.
guys.
Bye.
Okay, one moment, please. Next, we'll be considering a show cause hearing for landscape alteration by Mallard Property Holdings LLC at 30 Black Horse Lane. Charlotte, is there an update? Oh, well, let me ask, is there a cease and desist involved with this? No?
Actually, wait, let me double check that. Let me check my own letter. But I do
Yeah.
have Andrew Flynn here, who is representing Mallard Property Holdings LLC and as the property owner. Let me just quickly check my letter, sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I should have.
Yep, I'm sorry, I did do that. Stopped landscaping activity is stopped until further notice. So I can quickly summarize, and I did walk the site with Andrew, who has some additional information. But let me pull up. Might just be easiest to look at a near map. I'm sure you guys have already looked at it, but let me just pull that up while I'm talking. So I had gotten some reports from some abutters that there was some landscaping, alterations that were done in the coastal bank area atop, kind of a ledge outcrop. There were some other reportings of some landscaping alterations towards the front of the driveway, but I did confirm that that is actually a different property address, so I will address that separately. So for the purposes of tonight, we're just discussing the area atop the ledge. Sorry, pulling up near map now. So this is 30 Black Horse Lane, buffer zone, estimated buffer zone. So you can see here. So like this was, it looks like an existing path had been carved out, and there's, it's hard to see on the aerials here, but there is a wooden structure that was built on top of the ledge here. And in walking the site with Andrew, he had mentioned that there was a path that was already here, but he added crushed shell. So I do have some pictures of that you guys can see. And the ledge structure that was built, it wasn't like ledge wasn't removed to build it, but it was built on top of the ledge. So I guess Andrew, anything else to add there? Or
Excuse me. Good evening, commissioners, and thank you for your time this evening. I appreciate it. And Charlotte, first and foremost, thanks for taking the time to walk with me a couple weeks ago. And here tonight, happy to have a discussion. I mean, I'll say I'm an Olmsted nerd at heart, and so I take this stuff very seriously on a personal level. And to the extent I've inadvertently foot faulted or run afoul of anything, I certainly want to do whatever we have to do to either kind of document it or any other requirements. And I think just to provide a little context, so I'm the owner of the property. It's where I presently live. This isn't a development site or subdivision site or anything like that. I can tell you I grew up on Summer Street. I spent 10 years mowing all the lawns on Black Horse Lane and shoveling all the driveways. So it's an area I knew well. We knew the family that lived here growing up, and we spent a lot of time kind of going on, down this path to the rock. We were kind of, whether it was for swimming, or I know the family had they had summer furniture out there, chairs and tables and things like that. And so the last summer season was really the first season of my ownership, and we did some brush clearing to kind of just kind of, I guess, trail clear the path that had been there and had been overgrown a little bit. We ended up putting crushed shells down. I wanted to do something kind of organic and pervious and contextual, and then ultimately, and I think, as Charlotte, and maybe in a minute we can flip to some pictures, we were very careful. There were existing trees kind of in and around the path that we purposely, left in place, in a pretty deliberate manner. And then in terms of the wooden stairs that we put in towards the end, they were just resting on top, and we purposely built these to be temporary and seasonal. And so, we can demob these at any time. They're really just there just for access. Some older family members who were having trouble kind of getting up the rock. But yes, happy, again, I come here with a degree of humility and contrition to any, if I happen to kind of run afoul of anything, but I'm happy to chat further, and would be happy to walk with anyone else that would be interested in seeing it. Thank you.
So this is the clearly
Go ahead, Charlotte.
path here. Yeah. I did note with Andrew that by walking the site, it does appear that this path was either built at the edge of a wetland or possibly through a wetland. There were some old wetland flags that were actually found on the site. We couldn't find a date or anything, so I'm not sure when this area was last delineated. We did find them on this side. So sorry, like looking at the path, it's this side. There's right by this green tree, I think over here, there was a pink wetland flag. Andrew, I think you said you have more like just testimony though that the path has existed here for a while, because you said you used to walk it as a kid.
Again, I'm not trying to, there's no canard there or anything. I wish I had pictures and things like that. I think, Charlotte, when we walked, as you saw, we certainly didn't clear cut or really take any trees down.
Yeah.
We kind of, weaved through the existing trees that were there. So we certainly didn't approach it with any, bad intentions in terms of, let's just go, clear cut a bunch of trees to get down to the ledge. So we tried to be pretty thoughtful, but again, certainly, I want to make sure anything we do is always done right.
I can also go back to the structure too, if you guys want to see it, or if you want to go back to your map, just let me know. But yeah.
Sorry, where is the path in the property? Can you show me?
I can pull it back up. Yeah.
So Andrew, did you take, and I realize you're coming to us, in good faith, and we're going to figure out the best way to sort of resolve this and make sure you have the best use and enjoyment of your home. But did you take any trees out?
No, we did not take any tree, we did not cut any trees down. There were clearly some that over the years had kind of been felled either in storms or microbursts and things like that, but we didn't cut any trees down.
And did you haul out? So did you haul out trunks and dead wood or anything like that?
No, not really, to be honest. I mean, it was really more brush clearing. Yeah, I don't think there were any, material felled trees that would have qualified, more than kind of branches that had fallen off bigger trees that we maybe just cleared out of the way.
Just pushed over to the side, sort of.
Pretty much, yeah. And I think Charlotte and I saw some of those when we were in the field.
And then you pushed, and then you poured in that crushed stone.
Yeah, but I self-hauled that with pails. We got crushed shells dumped in the driveway and kind of hauled it across the lawn, and it took a lot of weekends and some sore lower backs. But yeah, we just hand installed those with pails and shovels.
Okay. Sorry, Commissioner McIntyre, I interrupted you.
No, it's fine. I'm just looking at the change from near map from April to August of 2024. And Charlotte, you said there's is the wetland strictly the riverfront, or is there additional wetlands that go inland?
Yeah, it's tricky because, you know, we are in the Gulf, so we are in riverfront. You can see the salt marsh, you know, kind of here on either side, on either screen. There may or may not be a little bit of BVW just south of where my markers are, but I saw the BVW flags, like there was one right here, actually a little bit close to where this marker is. So there's definitely some evidence that there's BVW closer to this abutting pier. I'm not so sure about past the marsh. That area was a little bit harder to look at in winter. But I did see signs of hydrology on the, you know, the eastern side here.
And
But
the
yeah,
only minor, clarification there too, I'd just point out is, those were not my wetland flags. I just don't want there to be any
Yeah.
perception that I got it flagged and then
No,
purposely.
yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know when,
They
where those
seem
flags
pretty
were.
old, and kind of sporadic, but I just don't
They
want
didn't
anyone
have a
to think
date on them, and
Yeah.
I'm actually shocked that a flag was still even there, because a lot of times they blow off within a certain amount of months. But yeah, it said ECR and that was about it. So we know that at one point ECR was out there. So
So, in my mind, we're not clear if this is a wetlands alteration or buffer zone infringement, right?
at this time, yeah, it's a little unclear. It seems to indicate that the path was either at the edge of a wetland or potentially through one, but it was an existing path, so I'm not really sure what the site conditions looked like other than just looking at aerials here. We do have, like, I was looking through the files. I mean, we have some ancient delineations from the early 2000s, but they're really hard to see on the plans. I can pull those up, but you guys would just be seeing a zoomed in picture, so it's a little hard to tell. But
Well, what does the wetlands regulation say about like existing paths? Because I'm looking at aerial, and all due respect to the history of the Mr. Flynn here, but there's no path to April 2024. So that
Yeah, I
doesn't-
think just the one thing I would say there is, in April, it was really just a dirt path or, wooden path. I think there had been wood chips at one time. And so, I think I certainly acknowledge putting white shells there is something that from an aerial axon will certainly look differently. Those white shells, we just put them in late August. So back in April, I guess, it really was just dirt and brush, and kind of wood chips.
It is within a resource area. So we really do need to, I mean, it's in a buffer zone, but it's also in the riverfront area. So we're talking about a resource, not necessarily a buffer to a resource.
Right. Because it's 200 feet, that's the resource, regardless of whether or not the wetland flags delineate some BVW. So, right, all right. So if it's a resource area, and then the shells is like essentially need to be taken out. Right? It's like I'm thinking about some recent hearings where they put fill in.
The structure also looks pretty permanent, don't you think? I mean, nobody's going to pick that up and carry it up onto the lawn. So it's not a seasonal structure by any means.
Charlotte, can you bring up the picture of the structure again?
sorry, yeah, I don't know if it was affecting you guys, but my internet was unstable. I think when I utilize Nearmap, it freaks out. But yeah, I can pull the pictures back up.
Commissioner Bell, I'll just say respectfully, and again, certainly we're happy to take it completely down. We did specifically design it. It's two pieces that can just be, it's not even embedded in anything. It's two pieces right at the turn of the stair that just breaks itself down very naturally. And, so the idea is that we put them in the garage in the winter. So I understand these pictures make it look maybe a little substantial, but and again, we could just get rid of it altogether. It's no problem.
Are they in the garage right now?
They were. We just brought them back out after Christmas. They're actually easier to get down before all the vegetation starts to grow in, to be honest. It's just when it's kind of less, we figured to be less impactful.
How much do you think they weigh?
They weigh a lot. We had a lot of our, half my extended family carrying them down after Christmas. But again, I'd be happy to remove them. I mean, it's really no problem. I'm not here to fight or defend. You know, we thought it was a benign structure, but I'd be happy to have it removed this week and dumpster it.
Yeah, I'll defer to the commission on that. I mean, it's up to you guys if you want the structure taken out, or if you want him to file for after the fact permitting to have a temporary structure here and remove it and, you know, deal with a plan with that through permitting, or if you just want him to take it out. I'll defer to you guys.
It seems like we have a couple issues. So we may be able to do an after the fact application for this structure if it is indeed temporary, and then it could be moved in and out. And I'd sort of defer to the other commissioners on whether that's possible. But it seems like part of the path and that fill may or may not actually be in the wetlands itself, which I don't think we would be even within our jurisdiction to permit. We wouldn't even be allowed to do that if we so chose. And please, somebody correct me if I'm wrong there.
Well,
I
it's
can
in-
double
it's
check
in-
the.
It's in the resource itself. It's in the riverfront.
Oh yeah. Anyway, it's in the riverfront.
Yeah, I'm
It's in
just specifically for BBW stuff, Mr. Chair. I mean, there's definitely performance standards, of course, for wetland crossings, but this is not a wetland crossing in terms of like for access, obviously, you know, because that would be under a limited project. This is, you know, it's more of a recreational path, but there may be other means of accessing the area where maybe you don't have to go through it, or maybe it is a wetlands crossing. And, you know, if you are going to utilize the coastal bank space and you need a crossing here, I mean, I can look into that, but it definitely wanted to get the commission's input of, you know, if we need further wetlands investigation, or if we want to do that as part of maybe any after the fact permitting. So I guess it depends on whether or not you want to act through the, you know, the violation notice that's been set, or if you would feel more comfortable looking at it through a permitting process, either for the path and or the structure as a temporary entity. So I guess it kind of depends on your read there, and then maybe going forward.
I don't know. I don't know if I have an answer. Commissioner Bell, what do you think?
Well, I think that if Mr. Flynn had come to us first and made the proposal, it would be, I think we'd be a little more sympathetic. But you know, we've been dealing with these build it first and ask permission later a number of times, and it's, you know, it just sets a bad precedent.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, the property's got plenty of waterfront access. It's like this last piece of the gulf towards the harbor that's like somewhat natural, and you know, just you want to go out on those rocks, find your way out there and go out there, but you don't have to have a landing and a white crush stone, like stone, whatever it is, culture, whatever. Like, I say get rid of it.
Commissioner Berrigan?
I don't know, really. I just have mixed feelings about it. I think that the steps that he put there, since they're removable, maybe we could permit him to have those. You know, he's talking about having them for some elderly people in his family to be able to enjoy that. So, and we don't really have any clear or definitive wetland markings or proof, right? So, yeah, it's, So I tend to think there really hasn't been any damage done. And I would be for permitting it for
As
him.
well as the crushed stone.
Yes. I don't see any trees removed or anything torn down or
So,
It's
Mr.
not-
Flynn, it seems to me like there's a couple options here, and Charlotte, anybody else, please, after. I actually sort of, feel better about the wooden structure if it can come in and out, and it's not really disturbing anything that I do about that crushed stone that may be just to be filling wetlands, and certainly is within the 200-foot. So. I guess you have a couple options, or maybe three, one, remove everything. Two, just remove the crushed stone and come back with an after the fact permit application for the temporary structure, or, some combination of those. And I'd sort of defer to you. I might want, the opportunity to, maybe think a little bit through and sort of look at the bylaw a little bit longer to give you a definitive answer. It's also difficult because we don't know what other resource area may or may not be impacted. It seems like the vicinity of that wetlands flag means that it's probably wet there. But I don't know, so what do you think, Charlotte, about those options?
Yeah, I think those are all feasible options to the commission. My main concern is I feel like that it would be best to have a wetland scientist take a look at the property and give us a confident assessment of whether or not this path is through a wetland or if there's only a wetland on one side. I think if we can get the base of a professional delineation rather than just my, informal assessment, as the agent, I would feel more comfortable with looking at potential permitting options if we know the situation of whether or not this path was disturbed through a BVW or if we're just dealing with buffer zone. Because as you mentioned, Mr. Chair, even though it is, just crushed shell and it's pervious, any material that temporarily or permanently increases the elevation of a wetland is considered fill by definition.
And I appreciate, Mr. Chair and Commissioner Berrigan and McIntyre and Bell. I appreciate all of the input. And I think I'd probably like to maybe at least reflect on it for a day or two, but just so I kind of understand some of the spectrum. I mean, if I were, again, I'd like to reserve rights for 24 hours, but if I were to remove the stair and the crushed shells, and again, I specifically did shells instead of stone because I thought that was a little bit more, contextual, but I understand if it's a change of condition. I mean, I'd be happy to remove the stair and the shells, and at that point, it's just kind of the path is there, maintain that, just reasonably, and maybe I could, make more of almost like a step stool type stair that I can bring in and out for certain people that have some mobility or accessibility issues. But if I remove the stair and the shells, I mean, would that address the concerns?
Yeah, I think it would.
Okay.
All that was done, right? I mean, that's all that was done, then.
I mean, it's not going to prohibit use, and yeah, I understand that some of your family may not be able to use this particular trail, but you do have frontage on the Gulf, and there are plenty of nice places to sit in a chair and enjoy the scenery. So if this isn't the only spot.
No, I think that's totally fair and reasonable. And so, I think maybe if I could defer, Charlotte, maybe I'll follow up with you on just some of the logistics, just because I want to, close this out, whatever the right, the right way is. But, I'd be happy to commit to the commission tonight to remove the shells, remove the stair, and, then it's just a path. I might have to have all you guys come with pails to help get rid of all these shells, but we'll make sure we do that in a gentle way. And, I'd be happy to do that. And, look, I might have like a 4-stair thing, not even a staircase, but almost like a little step stool for, little kids or older folks but I mean, that could come in and out on on like a nightly basis. That's not something that would, so yeah, I mean, I'd be happy to commit to that, Charlotte, and
Okay.
can find a, follow up with you on a timeline.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, if we're all in agreement on that, to not investigate the wetlands further, assume it's either partially in a, it's definitely in the buffer, but it's in riverfront. So if we want to just leave it at that without investigating the wetland line further, if everyone wants it to be taken out, I would recommend voting to lift the cease and desist and either issue a follow-up violation letter or an enforcement order, like just giving Andrew an expected time frame of when to take that out and report back to the commission. And if you're okay with either handling it administratively with just me and Andrew, or if you want him to formally come back as part of the show cause hearing, and present when the work has been done, those are some of the parameters that I would ask the commission to clarify. But yeah, definitely a vote tonight to lift the cease and desist to take the stuff out would be needed at the very least.
So that's your plan then, Andrew, is just to take it all out? I mean, you do have the option, not that, I mean, I guess our preference certainly would be to have it all taken out and get back to the natural state, but you do have the option to, have a wetland scientist come in, take a look and see if there is wetlands there, and potentially get a variance for working within the 50 if you aren't actually in the wetlands and you haven't filled them. And then, also within the 200-foot riverfront. So you do have options. Certainly our preference would be, and that's if the wetlands study comes out in your favor, but certainly our preference would be what you suggested committing to is just take it all out. And that would obviously make us happy. And if that is what you decide, then I'd be happy just letting you and Charlotte figure that out administratively from here on out.
Yeah, that would be great. I mean, look, I think I could have that out, in the next couple weeks. I just, so I'd be happy to commit, on the record here to remove the shells, remove the stair. Mr. Chair, I appreciate the opportunity and kind of the reasonableness and the guidance that I, to pursue potentially, a wetland study and, but I do want to respect the spirit, of the commission and kind of the intent here and again, happy to kind of return it to more of its natural state. So, please forgive me if I overstepped here with the shells, but Charlotte, I'll follow up with you, but I can probably have all of those removed by February 1st and same with the staircase.
All right, so one sec, guys, if you just hold on. So I guess we would need a couple votes, right? We would need one to remove the cease and desist, and then another to close the show cause hearing. And then we just let Charlotte follow up with Mr. Flynn administratively to confirm that it's completed. Does that sound right, Charlotte?
Yeah, if that's what the commission would like to do. And then I would just clarify, Andrew, I know you said you can get it out by February 1st, but I think the commission should give you a time frame. If you want to do it quicker than that, great. But just something like, I don't know, whatever you guys want, 15 days, 30 days, like, ASAP, like whatever you want. I can put that in the follow-up letter. So just let me know what you guys are thinking. He's already.
I'd be fine with March 1st. I don't
March 1st.
To get it all out. But defer to the rest of the commission.
Yeah, there's no telling about the weather, so I think we should be generous in our time frame here.
It's removed by hand.
I
That's-
agree.
Okay, so like by March 1st.
Yeah,
That's
that works for me.
Roughly 30 days.
If you guys know anyone who needs any shells, let me know.
Could also use them on your site, Andrew, outside of the buffer zones if you're, if you have any areas that need some additional,
Well, I'll make sure to check with you, Charlotte, before I do so.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so yeah,
All
that.
right, well,
Mr.
yeah,
Chair-
thank you guys, and thanks for being fair and reasonable. And I'll certainly hold up my end of the commitments that I made tonight, and I'll keep Charlotte posted as we go.
Can you just hang out 1 second? I'll just make a motion to remove the cease and desist to allow work for removal of the crushed shells and temporary structure.
Second.
By March 1st, by hand.
By March 1st. That's to remove the cease and desist. Second by Commissioner Bell. I think we'll probably be okay with just a voice vote here. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? And then I guess the next would be to close the show cause hearing. Or Charlotte, do we leave it open until the work's complete?
That's
on
up
your
to you guys. If you want Andrew to come back and show us the work to the commission or just report to me, that's up to you guys.
And then if it's not done by March 1st, we would just issue another
could always issue- yeah.
action. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I'll make a motion that we close the show cause hearing under the proviso that Mr. Flynn will work with Charlotte, the agent, to have the material, the crushed shell and the structure removed by March 1st. Any second?
Tom Bell, second.
I think again, a voice vote's probably sufficient. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that passes. So this hearing is closed. Thanks, Mr. Flynn, for coming before us and being straightforward about what happened there, and enjoy your property. Thanks for working with us.
All right. Thank you all. Really appreciate it. Thank you, Charlotte.
Awesome. Thanks,
Yeah.
Andrew. I'll
All right,
work with
bye.
you on that. Thank you.
Aye.
All right.
All right, so let me take a look here real quick. The next is a continued public hearing from an enforcement order from October 17th, 2024 for beach alteration by Minot International Limited at 100 Whitehead Road. Charlotte, any update?
Yep. So I do have an update. I spoke with Adam Brodsky, who's working with the property owner. They are working with Merrill Engineering, and they're working, I believe, with ECR to delineate the area and come up with mitigation. And they're also working on as you guys may remember, there were some dock modifications that were also not permitted. So they will need to submit a notice of intent for the dock modifications and definitely for revising their Chapter 91 license. And then they are working on the beach stuff either as a separate NOI or together with the NOI. I would personally want to see them separate just because docks are a whole different performance standard, obviously. But they did get draft plans just this week. So that's the update. You know, I know it's been a while since October since we've heard, you know, because obviously they needed some time to work with their professionals, but they do have draft plans. And they're in the process of finalizing those. In speaking with Adam Brodsky, he thought that March 6th would be an appropriate time to come back to the commission, either through the filings of a notice of intent and or an enforcement order update. And I just wanted to check with the commissioners if that's okay with you guys, or if you want to see them come back to us sooner, either informally or formally with documents. What are you guys thinking with this one? There's still a cease and desist on the property, obviously, for any alteration activities in the buffer zones and resource areas. So they cannot do anything still.
So I'd rather not clog up the agenda if it's only going to be a half measure. So if they can come back on March 6th with, with actual applications that are going to either after the fact resolve the issue or plan for, mitigating or resolving,
Okay.
subject to the enforcement order, I'm okay with
Yeah.
that date. But any other commissioners have a thought? Do we want to hear from them sooner, given the fact that it's been a few months, or is that okay with you guys?
It's okay with me.
Yeah, let them get their ducks in a row before they come back.
Yeah. And the enforcement order is still open, active. You know, it had required mitigation plans, but we've been okay with obviously working with the person to get those to us, and the cease and desist is still active as part of that enforcement order. So, whenever they come back with plans, that would just be a discussion, through permitting, but also with enforcement of anything that the commission would want to see from the enforcement side. So I definitely wouldn't close out the enforcement orders or anything until they've given us what we're satisfied with. So.
Yeah, so beach alteration for me is, rather obvious and significant. So, and the
Yeah.
original enforcement order was, October 17th. So that's, 3 months ago. And they still haven't. So if you can just impress upon them that, after March 6th, if we don't have
Yeah.
some forward movement on this, there may be, in fact, whether it's, look, how often have we issued fines? But
Yeah.
there's definitely going to
Yeah.
be some further scrutiny on this because
No, that's fine. I can relay that to them that it would be in their best interest to obviously submit either for, permitting and or provide us mitigation through the enforcement order and or any permitting by March 6th. So like they would have to submit for that hearing, and yeah, I can relay that message. That's
What do
totally
they have? Where's their dock?
it is on, I can pull it up on your map. It's hold on one sec. Sorry, just getting out of the mirror view. It's I can't remember if it's on like the hold on.
It's just inside the harbor.
Yeah.
It's on the south side of the rock, basically.
So this is the beach area in red, and their dock is just over here, Chris,
Oh,
by the home. Like this whole property is there. So
I was looking at the beach, the other beach alteration.
yeah, this is the beach here. This is from April 12th. You know, we saw.
That's the same property? What?
Yeah, no, this is all the same property. Yeah.
The island home and the beach home?
Technically, like the parcel data is a little different, but yes, this is all technically 100 Whitehead owned by Minute International Ltd.
Oh, all right.
Yeah. So this was the beach area. This is what we saw, you know, in 2022. We had asked them to stop, and obviously that didn't happen. So yeah, but the dock is over here by the home.
Got it. All right.
Yeah.
What about the mooring? Do they need a permit for that? They have a float.
They have a mooring. They have a mooring. Yeah, move back where you were, Charlotte.
Sorry. Where?
Zoom in, right there. You can see the mooring.
Oh, yeah.
Just right under 100 Whitehead Road.
I was looking north, off the beach where they did the raking.
Oh,
Those are other moorings that belong to other people.
Okay.
That little area is full of moorings. If you back out a little way, Charlotte, you can see all of them. Maybe.
oh yeah, maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. There. That's
Sorry, I was
to-
looking too close. Got it.
Yeah, that belongs to Whitehead Road, and that
Mhm.
there's another large one due north of it. And there during the season, there must be at least a dozen of them there in Sandy Cove.
Mhm.
At least a dozen. It's pretty
Yeah.
crowded in there.
Yeah. And I believe they already have a Chapter 91 license for the dock that was originally permitted. Obviously, the order has since expired. I believe it was from 2008. So to modify the dock in any way outside of their Chapter 91 license, they would need a new order of conditions, and they would have to get a modification and or sometimes even a new permit for Chapter 91, depending on the parameters of their original license. So for the dock part specifically, to make that modification, they would definitely need an order of conditions and a modified Chapter 91 license. And then for the beach stuff, I'm not going to weigh in on that now because obviously that's a whole different type of project to look at. So, but yeah, I'll tell them we definitely want to see something for March 6th. I think that's good since we've been, you know, patiently waiting for, you know, them to work.
Are
on
any
it.
of them on right now?
No, I told Adam that I'd relay the message.
Okay.
And he
Because
was fine with it.
if that northern beach alteration was from 2022 and they haven't done anything to mitigate that yet, that raking of that beach.
They were
you know,
doing it, yeah, they were raking the beach
Yes.
in 2023 and 2024. So we, you know,
It's been quite a while. So yeah, let's see if we can get a firm plan on
okay,
how this is going to get resolved by March
Okay.
6th.
that's fair. Yeah. Yeah, I'll tell them that we want to see something for March 6th, either in the form of the mitigation as part of the enforcement order and or permitting for those concerns in the letters in the enforcement order.
All
good.
right, so we'll continue this enforcement order to March 6th, but that will be, you know, the last continuance without some further heavier handed action by the commission. I'm not sure what that would be, but we'd like to see something happen.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay.
It's been since October, so.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but then also some of the work it's been, yeah, anyway. Okay, perfect. Now I have something that's sort of odd to do. I know we have a presentation from CCT regarding conservation restrictions, but waiting on the other side of that is whether to issue a certificate of compliance for NOI 2301 and stormwater permit 2301. I wonder if we wanted, and it seems like from speaking with you, Charlotte, you toured it, that you were fairly satisfied. if we want to take that out of order, we could let the 76 Summer Street people, sign off and do that before the CCT presentation, or is that?
Sure. Yeah, so I guess we have Bronwyn for 76 Summer Street and Katie Holden, one of the many people I'll promote for CCT for the presentation. I guess, Katie, I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but would you be okay with that if we just quickly went through the COC first?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I apologize. Just the internal town stuff. Let's let the property owner go.
Yeah,
Especially if they're
definitely.
paying.
Unless Bronwyn wants to stick around. All right.
Okay.
Sounds good. Thank you, Katie. We appreciate that. So I'll yeah.
Yeah. So next we're considering whether to issue a certificate of compliance for notice of intent 2301 and a certificate of completion for stormwater permit 2301 for work performed at 76 Summer Street. So Charlotte, I don't know if you want to promote anybody or tell us about your tour of the job site and how the finished product compares with the plans that were originally approved.
Sure. Yeah, sorry, just give me a moment to get my my notes here. There we go. And we do have Bronwyn, who's the property owner, and she's here to just answer any additional questions that I may not be able to answer. So I did walk the site with her, I think over a week ago. The site is fully stabilized. The stormwater, this was a notice of intent and a stormwater permit. So the stormwater infiltration system, the crushed stone trench that you guys see here. This is the approved plan that I've pulled up, by the way, just to give you refresh your memory. So there was a crushed stone trench here that has been installed. They were putting in 5 smart flood vents inside the garage. So, Bronwyn did show me where those were. And then the roof drain leaders connecting to the infiltration system. I think there's an additional roof drain here, and that's fine. It's all going to the same place on my book. And then they did not end up doing the pervious patio right behind the garage here, 271 square feet. So they ended up just not doing that, and they slightly reconfigured some of the the stepping stones here. But for the most part, the new driveway, the stormwater systems, all that has been installed. Bronwyn did provide a planting list. So there were, this is the green line, the 100-foot buffer to the salt marsh. That's the most outward limit of the wetlands jurisdiction. So they were putting in 4 trees and shrubs stuff just to be from Concom's list. And she did go through the lists, and she provided me with a planting list of I believe, Bronwyn, correct me if I'm wrong, these were the service berries, and you did a lot of inkberries up here on either side of the driveway. And I think, was the fringe tree here too, or was the fringe tree a little bit further back here?
The fringe tree is up front.
Yeah. Okay. So you did the fringe tree, and then you did the service berries. Service berries, depending on how you look at them, some people consider them trees, some people consider them shrubs. We have them as shrubs in our list, but these are outside of the riverfront and the 100-foot buffer. And even though the fringe tree is not on our list, it still is a native species to Massachusetts, but it is outside of the buffer zones. And then inside the buffer zones, there were 4 trees that were planted, and she chose river birch. On the as-built, you'd see 1 tree that was planted here, although walking the site with Bronwyn, that may or may not be a little bit closer to on the 100-foot buffer line. But she did choose 3 river birch and 1 black spruce tree in this area, and I can pull up pictures if you need me to. But other than that, those are really the only, deviations. All the utilities were connected. So I'll just open it up to commissioner comments. And then I guess just a quick note that there were no specific special conditions for the order or for the stormwater permit. So it was just our regular template. And if the commission is satisfied tonight, our standard conditions of plantings to survive 3 full growing seasons and not using chemicals. So that would be conditions 40 and 41 if a COC is issued tonight.
Great. I don't know if my video seems to not be working all of a sudden, but Commissioner Bell, did you have any further questions?
No, I don't.
I can also pull up the as-built.
Commissioner Berrigan?
No, I don't have any further questions.
Commissioner McIntyre?
No questions. Thank you.
Great. I don't have any. It seems like very little deviation. Maybe a tree was slightly moved. I appreciate the work that was done. With that, I'd entertain a motion to issue a certificate of compliance.
With conditions 40 and 41.
with conditions 40 and 41.
Second,
All right, yep, I'll make the motion to issue a certificate of compliance, for NOI 2301 with conditions 40 and 41 for work performed at 76 Summer Street. Second by Commissioner Berrigan. Any further discussion? Roll call vote, Commissioner Bell,
Tom Bell, aye.
Commissioner Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Commissioner McIntyre,
Chris McIntyre, aye.
and Valerio Romano, aye. And then we also need to issue a certificate of completion for stormwater permit 2301 for work performed at 76 Summer Street. I'll make that motion. Do I have a second?
Tom Bell, second.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Chair, just real quick for the stormwater permit, I had talked to Bronwyn about this, but the long-term operation and maintenance plan just needs to be recorded, but since she has to go to the registry anyway for the order conditions COC, she can, just go at the same point. We've done that for other projects if you guys are still okay with that. But that would be done administratively before I issue the COC formally. So if you guys are okay with that, that's,
Thanks for pointing that out, Charlotte. Bronwyn, so you'll record that with the registry, the maintenance plan. I take that as a yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so motion made and seconded. Commissioner Bell,
Tom Bell, aye.
Commissioner Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Commissioner McIntyre,
Chris McIntyre, aye.
and Valerio Romano, aye. All right, so NOI 2301 and stormwater permit 2301 are both closed and approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
awesome. Thank you, guys.
Have a great evening.
Bronwyn.
You too.
Now, I look forward to the CCT presentation. Would the commission like to take a quick 5-minute break before we dig into it?
Okay, I'll promote everyone too, just so that we can get them on the same.
All right, I'll be back at 8:47. I'm going to log in and out because my video seems to have died. So we'll be back by 8:47.
All right.
Thank you all.
Thank you, guys. Hi, Jeff. Hi, Debbie. Hi, Sarah. Hi, Katie. Is there anyone else I'm missing? One more person in the audience, but it just says HS. Do you guys have someone HS?
We should have, no, just Katie. No, that's just the four of us.
Okay, great. In the meantime, while we wait for the commissioners to come back in 5 minutes, do you guys want me to pull anything up, like just the map for now? Do you guys have slides
Yeah,
that you want to
just
pull
the
up?
map.
Okay.
Yeah, no, we don't need to get into a lot of slides. No.
Okay. Yeah, with pulling up the map, it makes my internet run really slow, so that's why I saved it for.
Oh, it does. Oh, no.
That's okay. I mean, I don't need to talk. Let's see where to go. There we go.
And did you have copies of the conservation restrictions that we sent to you?
So I spoke with Katie today. Unfortunately, since planning board does not have them, there's indications that they're in our archives. And so I just have to find them. I can always print out new ones, but I would like to pull the original files and try to consolidate everything. There's our archives are really messy with things that aren't affiliated with a project file number. So, but I do see indications in certain boxes that there's some conservation restriction documents. So I was going to look for all those.
All right. So in the bottom right, there's that layer button, the one in the middle.
Yeah.
So if you click on the layer button.
Yep.
And
sorry,
then
I'm moving. Do you want me to toggle off any of these?
yeah, so just keep the CCT and the town boundary.
Yeah.
And then you just get, just so people have like a sense of
Yeah, that's a lot easier to look at.
like just generally where they are. Like,
Perfect.
I think this gives you a sense. And if you could just scroll it a little bit so you can see Black Rock Beach, because we,
Yep. Yeah.
Oops. That's all right.
I'm going to try to close out of my other stuff so that Maybe my internet might be a little better. I don't know why this website's making it run slow.
I think it's like, because it's really a GIS file. You're in
probably
ArcGIS
it.
when you're in this.
That's probably it. Yeah, like you saw, Nearmap made my computer run a little slow. So this one definitely same thing. It's probably because the town gives us ancient laptops.
Mm.
Yeah. But yeah, thank you guys. I didn't mean to put Katie on the spot to speak for all of you, but thank you for just reorganizing the order just a tad. We appreciate
Oh,
that.
no, that's fine. I know Bronwyn. You want to get
Oh,
Bronwyn.
okay. Yeah, she did a lot of research for her project with the native species, so
That's great.
um
Alrighty, if you can just zoom it out so we can see the whole town better.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Alrighty.
there we go. I think that's a good one.
Just so we can see like the whole Cohasset coast.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's okay to mention, I talked to Jeff Donzi, one of our other board members who has a background in GIS and mapping. And he's agreed to help get the CRs mapped again. So
That's awesome. And actually, I met Jeff at a CSCR presentation last week, Katie. So yeah,
oh, wonderful. So you know who he is. Okay.
yeah, he said he specialized in GIS. I was like, oh, you're CCT, awesome. You guys are presenting to us next week. So, yeah.
All right, yeah, if we could see the whole town and then we can leave the map there. Yeah, there we go. Alrighty. Just we can see like the entire.
All right.
Charlotte, you're
You
leaving
can
out my
show
neighborhood.
Black Rock Beach because you can't see Black Rock. Just like move it down just a little bit.
Like this?
Yeah. That's,
Yeah,
yeah.
because we own that little bit of Black
Perfect.
Rock. Yeah. Alrighty, great. Alrighty.
Okay.
Well, thank you guys. for
Everyone
let-
back?
Is everyone back?
Let me just see. Mr. Chair, is he there? No? Technically need him for a quorum. There he is. Hey, Valerio, you ready? Valerio, you're muted.
Can you see me?
Not yet.
My video got messed up for some reason. I'm not worried about it though. Yeah, I'm ready. Is
All
everyone
right.
back? Is Commissioner McIntyre back?
Yes.
Yep, there. All right. Let's
Well,
dig
thank
in.
you guys. We appreciate your time tonight to come to the Conservation Commission and show us the your properties and the conservation restrictions that you hold and that the town holds or that we're equally responsible for in one way or another. So do you guys want to like introduce yourselves and start or do you want?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I'm Sarah Sharon. I'm the new president of CCT, and I'll pass it on to Jeff.
I'm Jeff Wall, I'm the new vice president of CCT. And
And I'm Debbie Shad, currently clerk for the CCT and vice president before Sarah took over.
I'm Katie Holden, and I'm just a board member, soon to be employee. So.
All righty. So we really appreciate the Conservation Commission letting us come tonight. We just want to try to have a better partnership between the Cohasset Conservation Trust and the Conservation Commission. We find as a nonprofit that a lot of us actually get us confused with you guys. I don't know if you guys get confused with us, but that definitely happens. But just so you know, we've been around since 1967. Our first property was Bassing Beach in Scituate, and our organization was set up in order to acquire Bassing Beach. So we've been around over 50 years. Since that time, we now outright own 28 properties totaling 180 acres And then we have conservation restrictions on 3 additional properties, which over 48 acres. So the total number of acres in Cohasset, Hull, and we have 1 little property in Hull and Situate's 229 acres, which is a lot for a group of 12 volunteers, which is why our board just voted a couple weeks ago to hire Katie as our first land stewardship manager to help us better manage all the properties. And part of that is to coordinate with people like you guys who actually have a responsibility for some of our properties by holding the conservation restriction. So I'm sure you driving around town are familiar with some of our properties because of the green kind of like rectangular signs on the side of the road. And we really, as you can just get the brief snapshot from the property map on our website, we truly do own properties all around town. Along the coast, we own Francis Shore, which is more the eastern part of Black Rock Beach. We own Scotts Shore, Bassing Beach. You know, we own a lot of property along different water bodies, whether it's the Little Hull property on Straits Pond. We own the Steinmetz Wildlife Reserve on Little Harbor, as well as Williams Salt Marsh on Little Harbor. We own properties along the Gulf River, like Dormitzer Marsh, Pegram Preserve, Supper Island. We own swamps and marshes, like the Golden Swamp next to the train station, Remick Salt Marsh on Joy Place. And then we own a lot of woods. We've been very fortunate to have many people donate quite substantial properties, or we've been involved in acquiring properties. So behind Town Hall, Great Brewster Woods, which is 18 acres, was donated in the 80s. And then Helen Dean donated an additional like over 7.5 acres. So we have like 25.7 acres behind Town Hall, which it's absolutely beautiful property. Ingram Park was a property on Beechwood, sort of Norman Todd, that was work that the Cohasset Conservation Trust worked with the Cohasset Land Foundation to acquire, and that's 27 acres. I mean, that's a lot of land. And the Conservation Commission has a CR on one of the 3 lots that we own that's part of the Ingram property. The Bread and Cheese Conservation Area, which is kind of off forest, is 34 acres. I mean, it's a big property. There's no access to it right now, and it's pretty swampy back in there. And then we have the CR on Barnes Wildlife Sanctuary, which is part of, you know, sort of Wheelwright Park. And then we own a smaller property, the Boot Preserve, which directly abuts and connects with the Barnes Wildlife Sanctuary. And then over by Lily Pond, we own like 4 properties, which when you add them up together is 19 acres. So Harvey Park and Trails is right on King. It's then near Wheelwright Highlands, also near Churchill Conservation Area. And then there's an island, Andros Island, which both the town and our land trust own together. And our portion is the Prescott Low property on Andros Island. So I mean, we really own properties large and small. You know, some are contiguous, some are sort of like pocket kind of areas. Some of our properties have trails. Great Brewster Woods has a trail network. Ingram Park has a trail network. Obviously, Barnes Wildlife Sanctuary, and the Harvey property on King Street has a trail. But a lot of our properties, you know, don't have access unless you're going by boat. You know, obviously you can get to Bassing Beach. That's the same for Supper Island, Steinmetz Island, or Steinmetz Reserve. But obviously Bassing's is the one that gets the most people visiting. But yeah, I mean, we're incredibly fortunate. We have beautiful properties all around town, and, you know, it's a big responsibility for a bunch of volunteers, and we take our volunteer job seriously, and we're very excited to bring Katie on as our first employee to, you know, better develop management plans, land stewardship plans for our properties. And so we really want to, you know, be working with the Conservation Commission so that the properties where we sort of share a responsibility, that we kind of work on these plans together. So that's kind of, the main thing that I wanted to go through. I'd like to pass it on to Katie to talk a little bit more about conservation restrictions and what they are and, what they're not. Just so that we, sort of segue a little to that part.
Hello. So you may have some already, familiarity with conservation restrictions since you've recently signed the Salerno conservation restriction off of King Street. A conservation restriction is a tool for land protection, where it allows the landowner to keep ownership of the land while placing permanent restrictions that limit land development and protect it for conservation purposes. It's a legal document that must be approved by the state and recorded. The Conservation Restriction Act began in 1969, 2 years after Bassing Beach was acquired, and has protected thousands of acres. In Cohasset, there are 13 completed conservation restrictions that protect over 200 acres. And it's kind of used often. Towns and land trusts and towns will work together because it requires a lot of, with limited resources and times, it's a kind of a belt and suspenders approach. So, the land trust can own land, but it's not technically legally protected unless there's conservation restriction on it. The town can own land. It's not actually protected unless there's a conservation restriction on it. So we work together and to ensure it's legally protected in perpetuity, which is a very long time. So as part of that, there's different ways, CRs can be donated, or there can be required as part of a permitting process for certain, planning board permits, as if a town uses Community Preservation Act funds like Cohasset has to for a conservation restriction to protect land, there's a conservation restriction is required. So that is what basically how the town holds conservation restrictions on Ingram CCT's properties, the Ingram property and the Salerno property. There, as far as Cohasset, the trustees holds 4 conservation restrictions. CCT holds 3 conservation restrictions. The town holds 4 conservation restrictions, and there's 1 by Maxwell Trust Institute. The CCT holds 2 conservation restrictions on town land. That's the Peppermint Brook, which is off of Chief Justice Cushing. It's about 8 acres. And as you know, probably more familiar with, Barnes Wildlife Sanctuary, which is 32 acres. And then we have one on Supper Island, which is privately owned. So holding a conservation restriction is a big responsibility to make sure that you're enforcing the terms of the conservation of the CR and that the conservation values are being upheld and protected. And so in order to do that, often, you develop some kind of stewardship program, whether, you have documentation of the existing conditions, and there's different levels of that. You would create a baseline documentation, or and then you have periodic monitoring. And so I know Charlotte has been looking into that, and it sounds like there's some great apps that make it easier than it used to be for making monitoring easier to do. As I'm sure the commission is familiar, there, if there's not eyes or monitoring, there might be less public awareness, and there may or may not be violations. And so to prohibit, be proactive and to kind of prohibit costly violations, it's good to start this program of monitoring. CCT has had at least 4 kind of structural encroachments on CCT land from people who may or may not have been aware of the property boundaries. So I'm excited to, hopefully work with Charlotte and try to get some monitoring and documentation going. And often, I don't know if I used to, way back in the day, I used to work for the Conservation Commission in Concord, and so kind of started, they're much larger, so they started a separate conservation restriction stewardship committee, and develop violation policies with the select board and that kind of thing. But we can just I think it's important to kind of start with mapping them and having the records, and just going out and seeing what's going on out there to make sure that the conservation values that are in the conservation restrictions are being upheld. So.
And then Charlotte, it's my understanding that you've done your due diligence to read your job description, and that your job description's actually supposed to be doing these things. So I don't know if you want to comment quickly on that.
Yeah. Yeah. So unfortunately, the history with the conservation agent and the Conservation Commission in terms of land stewardship and management seems to be spotty at best, at least from what I can see. And so it actually is listed in my job description as one of the responsibilities of the agent, and also ultimately with the commission is, land conservation conversations, discussing, property options with owners. And so all that land management stuff, in part, is a responsibility of the conservation agent and, of course, the Conservation Commission. So that's, I'm really excited to work with, everybody, especially, CCT's newly hired land stewardship manager. Excited to work with them to do better, obviously, which seems to be the existing was not much or anything at all. So we're definitely looking at, I'm going to try to pull the archived records of what conservation may have for the CRs that have already been finalized and recorded. I would be very curious to know which properties have already done baseline documentation studies, if we even have those, or even if we did any sort of baseline assessment. And then for properties that are more established, that already have those baselines, just setting up a monitoring schedule, especially with the properties where CCT and Town of Cohasset would work together. So I'd work with, CCT and Katie on that. So yeah, just trying to get a read of whatever the commission or potentially any of my predecessors may have done. I'm going to try to find that as best I can. And if I can't find anything and we have to start from scratch, that's fine, as long as we have something moving forward. But yeah, this has always been a responsibility for the agent and for the commission. It's just, unfortunately, I was small town. That's my guess why we haven't done it. So.
And I think that, so while you guys just signed the King Street conservation restriction, that whole property transaction hasn't happened yet. But perhaps when that property transaction finalizes, we could even have a site visit where we go to the 2 CCT properties where the Cohasset Conservation Commission actually holds the CRs. So for the Ingram property, we own 3 separate lots. So we would want to make sure that the commissioners know exactly which section that the Concom's responsible for. And then again, with the properties on King Street, since there's so many properties that are connected together, to make sure they understand sort of where the property bounds are, since, we own a lot of land right next to each other. And then for the 2 properties that the town owns, but that CCT holds the conservation restriction. I mean, Barnes Wildlife Sanctuary is a property that's fairly easy access with the trails, so I think the monitoring will not be as difficult there. But for Peppermint Brook, I mean, I'm not sure whoever goes in there. So how
Yeah.
that monitoring program would go, that's going to be something we're going to have to figure out. I mean, have you ever been in any of that? Yeah.
I've been in Barnes, obviously, but not Peppermint Brook. I thought that area was pretty much like, don't touch.
But maybe because you have access to the really good aerial maps.
Yeah,
maybe
we can.
like that's the kind of stuff, like developing the plans to figure
Mhm.
out how or what's our baseline, how are we going to monitor, and maybe for some properties like that, but the use of mapping.
Absolutely. And yeah, as Katie briefly mentioned, in the courses that I've taken over the last month, there's definitely a lot of resources that are out there. There's a lot of templates that already exist. There actually is a template to from the state to even write a conservation restriction, but then there's more templates available from like conservation organizations, other towns in terms of doing baseline documentation studies, follow-up monitoring reports. There's a lot of different suggestions out there about which apps people like to use, where you can track, the trails and paths that you walk and where the property lines are. You can take pictures and, upload those either into the apps or correlate that so that you always have like time-stamped, inspection checkpoints if that's how people want to do it. So there's a lot of great technology that's out there that I'm trying to weed through right now in terms of my crash course level. And Katie, happy to work with you on that, especially if you have a preference of what you may have already used for Concord or anything new that you've tried recently. But yeah, it's probably going to be, of course, some trial and error and figuring out what works best in terms of workloads and management but yeah. We'll definitely have to figure out a way to access Peppermint Brook. That was the one that I'm trying to figure out in my brain.
Yeah.
That one seems like it might be the most difficult.
Yeah, and our land trust works with a lot of National Honor Society students, and our newest board member who has a GIS background, Jeff Donzi, he's been supervising some of the National Honor Society students, and one of them just developed a Survey 123 app to report where trees have fallen down that are blocking the paths. So he works with the CSCR folks, and they're kind of like the back end. So Jeff Donzi would be great to tie in with this to figure out like what technologies would be helpful so that we're all sort of on the same page, kind of start in the right direction. And then I guess the question I have is how much like the commissioners want to be involved with the CR stuff, or how much would be just you as the agent, or if that's something you haven't even talked about yet.
This is Valerio. Sorry, my video is just not working. I mean, depending on what's expected. I mean, particularly if it's walking outdoors and sort of monitoring land, that's something that, as long as I can take my dog with me, I'd be happy to, to do. I think we walk miles every day. So that's something I certainly, as an individual, would be happy to help with if there's some way I can add value to what you guys are doing.
Great.
Yeah, same. A lot of the stuff we do here is sitting at the computer. So if there's something that we can do outside that helps with conservation, that's why I'm here. So walking, same as Valeria, walking outdoors, checking aerial maps, doing whatever. Just a little training up as to what the monitoring protocol is, and I'm good to go.
Yeah, because I think once the apps are developed, it's a matter of like everyone who has access to the app can then go to the properties and report anything that they see, so that's the beauty of the smartphone. So I think Charlotte will figure it out. Yep.
Is there, and it sounds like there probably is, but I was just thinking about what sort of centralized kind of like data repository would look like, right? So we have the list of lands, but then we would want to know each of the owners for the land. Then we'd want to know which ones we are allowed to access, to check on. we'd want to know, what restrictions there are for each one. Some of this probably overlaps with some tax obligations for some of these owners as well. I would guess by putting it in restriction, whether is there a mechanism for figuring out if there's an application before us, whether it impacts CCT land or not. Maybe also a reflection of what resource areas and setbacks are in each one of these areas as well for our own, just as part of this sort of central database. And then the actual CR that's recorded that's attached to each one of these properties too. And there's probably the things that the experts on, on the call here are, would also add to that. But I don't know if that's all centralized already, but just having that available somewhere in the town's OneDrive might be valuable.
From a town perspective, when I was doing research for the open space plan and, looking through the list that the state has, there's some conservation restrictions that appear might have been required as far as the planning, permitting, and never got completed. So those might be worth, like Charlotte or somebody kind of checking with Cassandra and kind of letting her know about those and seeing what the background of those. That's kind of separate, but it's CRs that were supposed to happen, I believe, or and never finished and there's also a few that are finished, but I don't think anybody knows about them or has been out there. So there's a little bit of research that might be good to look into too. Not just the ones that actually got completed.
Yeah, I think the first step is going to be, just like you said, like organizing all the information and then getting it all in one place. I think that's probably going to be like the first step. And then figuring out, what monitoring plan or the baselines, whatever, like that will be sort of the second step. So, so maybe we can once Katie and Charlotte kind of get through that first chunk, then you can share, where the information is, but that could take a little bit of time just to get everything.
Yeah, I will be spending probably half a day or even a full day to comb all those archive boxes because they could be in any box at this point. But I do see them in our archives list, as I do see conservation restrictions in specific boxes. I just don't know what addresses they're for. So I think locating any files we have and taking those out and consolidating them and keeping them in my office and obviously making those electronic. And then of course, giving those to Katie in replicate form, because they're all recorded public documents. So it's not like we have anything to hide. And then once we have that all centralized, I can put a copy of that all in the commission's OneDrive. There's an internal OneDrive that the commission utilizes for projects and just for internal references. So anything that I make electronically will definitely, of course, be, coordinated with Katie and shared with the commission, so that everyone will have access to the same documents. And hopefully eventually the same maps, obviously, like what you guys see right now in ArcGIS. So that's definitely step one, to organize, find, consolidate, and scan in the files, make them all accessible.
And it may be part of Charlotte's job description. And I just going to stick up for Charlotte for a second here. Charlotte works really hard already, so let's not have overly expect, too many more hours adding to her workload. We're going to have to be realistic about what we can do and, take it in stride, because, she's constantly running around and really manages a lot of projects going on in town already. So let's all be aware of that
Thank you. Definitely. I'll do, but since it is a part of my job, I'm definitely happy to allocate time for this. As you guys know, Angela is retiring in March. So once we have a new admin who's been trained, that'll definitely be able to offload a lot of the administrative responsibilities from me right now. And I can focus definitely more on this. I am more than happy to disappear for a day into the archives and people can just say the agent's not available today. It's a, so, but
So-
thank you, Mr. Chair, I appreciate that.
Of course. So just, as a more fun question, let's say I got up tomorrow morning at 7 and went to walk my dog. Where would which CCT spot would you recommend that I go to in town?
Let's
Is that a thing?
I would say Harvey Park and Trails.
Which one?
Harvey Park and Trails on King Street, 455 King Street.
455 King Street?
Yeah, that's the one that we've been working on to create a parking lot, clean it up. We planted some native species to identify the property boundaries. And there's a nice little trail in there.
And I'm sorry, I didn't understand it's Highway Park and Trails? Well, I didn't understand.
Harvey.
Harvey Park and Trails. Okay. All right, cool. I'll check it out.
And have you been into Great Brewster Woods behind town hall?
I'm not sure if I have, no.
Because that's a longer trail. That's another nice trail.
Just, yeah, I know. Yeah, at Great Brewster, always just keep your dog close. If there's coyotes, I know yours is little, right, Peaches? So you could like pick them up. It's a good, easy one.
Yeah, so I have a dog named Peach also. She's about 40 pounds though. So she's, yeah. Yeah, that's great. Good. That's great. I mean, I haven't, yeah. Are there other ways that you think we can work together?
Yeah, that was the next thing we're thinking about like potential like grant applications or other ways that we can partner on land stewardship and protection.
Yeah, there's a couple that we were kind of actually looking at. I had presented a potential idea to CCT about, it's not the Supper Island, but it's the marsh parcel that's further up on the Gulf. Does that one have a name? I'm sorry, I'm forgetting. Yeah. So Woods Hole group, at one point we were looking together at some potential sites in town, whether it was town owned or conservation entity owned, about doing some restoration. There's a lot of grants out there for salt marsh investigations, restoration, and management. There's definitely more grants that are out there that are outside of the wetlands realm. So that's definitely potential ways that we can collaborate and coordinate efforts to not just manage these properties and monitor them, but even potentially restore them in certain capacities. So there's definitely grant money for that. And then also kind of thinking ahead too, once we can kind of get our feet all on the same level, on the same ground level, any properties that either the town owns or that CCT owns or both, that it might be beneficial in the future to put conservation restrictions on them or portions of them. There's definitely grants for that too. And eventually, whenever Concom can generate a lot of income, technically, a responsibility of the Concom can actually be acquiring land, and you can also do that through grant capabilities. So there's a lot of options that we can work together with CCT and the town to monitor land, preserve land, restore it, buy it, turn land that we already own into CRs, because as Katie mentioned, really the only legal way to protect land from future development in any capacity, except maybe for trail maintenance and creations, are obviously through CRs. So.
And also working with the open space committee, making sure they're all tied together. And I know they're going to be working on, it's going to expire eventually. So they're working on that process. And it's important to make sure that we're on the same page as far as putting things in the plan about priorities, so that if you do go to the grant, you can say it's a top priority in open space plan. So all kind of related together. Yeah.
And I think grants do well when a land trust partners with the town. And if there's properties like neighboring each other, like we acquired a property about 4 years ago called Drynan Family Conservation Area that's on Forest Avenue near North Main Street. And it's a long, skinny property that ends on town land that is like all part of the dump. But like the part that our property abuts is like no man's land, so it's possible that our property could be used as a way to get to some of the town land that's like kind of in behind. And Carl Sestito actually walked us from the dump to our property. So like there is a lot of open space back in there. So, there's definitely pockets around town where we could partner together just because the town owns land next to our lands.
At one point, there was a lot of, well, there was some effort. I think Peppermint Brook was part of it to acquire land within the watershed to protect Lily Pond, and particularly in the Peppermint Brook portion of, tributary to Lily Pond. So I don't know if the water department is kind of outsourced to management, but I don't know if that's a partnership that you guys can explore.
Well, because we're like the King Street properties we're talking about, those are all in the Lily Pond watershed. So we already own, that's like 20 acres, like in the watershed over there. And then we even own this Garrison property, which is where the old ice house was, right on Lily Pond. And it's a smaller property, but it's right on the pond, like right on the edge. So we're definitely over in that part of town as well. And then there's the Esposito property that the town owns, and we own 2 properties that abut that on both sides. So I know there's been chatter about different grant opportunities at that property and what to do there. So there's a few places.
But funding is pretty much restricted to grants. There's none of these departments have a bunch of land acquisition.
Yeah, one of the things I'm working on that I still don't fully understand, even after talking about it several times internally, conservation, there is a separate account that is utilized by the Conservation Commission for potentially one of these purposes. It's just those funds are not really accessible as a revolving fund. So there's like internal things that I can figure out to establish some sort of at least conservation, revenue and or budget to use to, look into some of the stuff. Even if we just hire someone to, go out and do like property stuff, tree survey stuff, like outside of the grant world, that could be something that we could hopefully figure out. But yeah, internally, it's definitely complicated of how all the accounts are set up. So I still have to figure that out.
And another thing about owning all this land is maintaining it, and especially if there are trails. And something we've had, a few conversations with the town about is sort of the main trail road in Wheelwright Park, because it's in such like poor condition. So it's one thing to get to the parking lot, but once you're parked and you're gonna walk either by yourself with your dog, or you're with your horse, or you're on a bike, or the whole cross-country team is racing against another town, that whole road is in just such abysmal condition. So, there's been chatter about like, well, it's the town owns Wheelwright Park, so could that be improved? And again, it's like, and then where does that money come from, right? Like,
Their CPC funds are allowed for trail maintenance and work. So we haven't had a huge amount of luck with that yet, but if it's a coordinated effort, then who knows?
I think open space would definitely be on the same page as all of us with that. So like if there was a joint effort between the 3 groups to do trail maintenance, especially on the properties that already have, actively used trails, I think that would give us a good standing with CPC to get some of those funds.
Yep.
And CPC funds can also be used in combination with grants, especially as part of a matching component. Because obviously a lot of grants out there, it's a reimbursement thing. You don't get things for free. You have to match a certain percentage of the total project costs. So yeah, CPC is a really good potential source of funding a lot of this work. I would say the town conservation stuff is probably the last option, but I will try to improve that. We will be raising our fee schedule, so increased fees are coming.
So Charlotte, are you gonna just like highlight for us which properties we should focus on, or and then what monitoring, like what's the next step?
Yeah, I think the highest priority ones would be where the town/conservation commission owns the conservation restriction. Because those are the ones that we're mostly responsible for monitoring, and then secondarily followed by the properties that either the town owns and CCT manages the CR. That, and then followed by, anything else that we might be able to help out with for future stuff. And I'm so sorry, I'm forgetting I've looked at the list, but I forget the 3 properties that the Conservation Commission owns or the 4 that the town owns the CRs on. Can you guys, sorry, I can pull up the map again, but.
It's Ingram
Yep, Ingram, yep.
and Salerno, which is off that is connected to Harvey.
Yep.
And then there's some
Peppermint Brook.
that are on Wheelwright. I'm not and off Beechwood. I'm not as familiar with those.
Okay.
But the ones where CCT holds the CR is Barnes Wildlife Sanctuary and Peppermint Brook. Those are the 2 town parcels that we hold the CR.
Mm-hmm. And I can, I'm sorry, my internet keeps freaking out every time I pull that up. I can, Katie just gave me a list in Excel that she had previously given to the state. So we're going to update that and share it with you guys. And we'll make sure that we either color coordinate or specify like which properties of who owns what and who's responsible for what. But those would definitely be the ones to prioritize, at least for our Concom, the ones where the town/Concom holds the CR. And then obviously followed by the ones that we both will work on together, town owned, and you guys hold the CR.
Great.
Yeah, so those are probably the ones to mostly focus on. And then obviously on a separate note, there are a couple properties that are owned by the trustees. I'm sorry, the town owns them, but the trustees of reservations manages the CRs. So Brass Kettle Brook and Turkey Hill are a couple of those. And so we already get yearly monitoring reports for those, and I have been out to those sites, but I'll definitely turn that up, of course, with maybe walking more of the full perimeter and getting more involved in the annual reporting for that with the trustees. And obviously commissioners are, of course, welcome to those sites as well. So yeah, those are the other ones I would look into separately outside of CCT. But obviously you guys are, of course, welcome to join that too, if you want to just see the properties if you haven't walked them before.
Yeah, and I guess we should also mention the 280 acres of CR that was never finished. The town was hoping that the trustees would hold that, and they did thousands of dollars of work. They had extensive baseline documentation, and then they said that they would not agree to hold it based on the some couple deed issues. And so CCT is all volunteer, and it's such a large responsibility that we felt like is too large a lot of responsibility for CCT. But I'm wondering whether there's another group like Wildlands Trust, who is regional, that might be willing to, like, that's still hanging out there. It's just like the CR of 280 acres that's not legal right now.
So is that on the list?
Is that Brass Kettle Brook you're talking about, Katie?
Yeah.
Brass Kettle Brook? Okay.
Yeah. So it's all those lands that were protected. There was a large swath of different pieces, and they were all supposed to be under conservation restriction. So, that's the Lily Pond watershed that, so it's not actually protected right now. So it's just kind of waiting for somebody to hold the conservation restriction who has the resources to monitor it. So.
And Katie, what was the regional group that you said that might be able to assist with that if the trustees can't?
Wildlands Trust.
Wildlands Trust. Okay.
They're out of Plymouth.
Person over there. Nice.
They have an extensive website. I think you could find.
Oh yeah.
Easily.
Yeah. And they have CR staff, so maybe they would be willing to help out with that. We're a little bit on the fringe of their regional area, but they might be willing to do that.
And I know this would involve way more complication and oversight, but I guess to your knowledge and experience, we don't have any current collaboration with any of the tribal groups in Cohasset or the South Shore, right? Not that they would hold the CRs, but in terms of them actively being involved and helping out with the land preservation, that's probably not a thing, right, in Cohasset? It could be, but I know that would be a lot of work, so. No, okay. Yeah, so I'd say those are probably our priorities, you know, the ones where the town and the Concom hold the CR, then secondarily the ones where obviously CCT holds the CR that are town-owned properties, and then obviously the properties that just never followed through with finalizing those CRs. Those would
Yeah,
probably
and-
be the ones to focus on.
And Jeff pulled all the actual CRs that I sent to you in the email. So if you want to
Thank you.
share any of those with.
Yeah, those are all in the commission's OneDrive right now, but I'll definitely make a
Okay.
central location for you guys in your in the OneDrive. And it'll just be a copy of all the electronic files that, you know, we put together. Yeah, in those CRs, it shows obviously the regulated activities that are okay versus the ones that are obviously prohibited. In that Excel sheet that Katie just sent me today that she had previously sent to the state, there's all the book and page reference numbers and all that good information. So we'll fill in the blanks with the information that needs to just be added, and yeah, that'll all be shared with you guys.
Well, yeah, the state has their own list, and then I just made it a separate list that's a little bit more has additional information. It's
Yeah.
easier to understand. So we'll compare all that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so you did get something from Denise, Katie? From the
Not
state?
an updated one. I still have the old one
okay.
from a few years ago. So, but,
Gotcha.
hopefully.
No worries. No, that's awesome. We'll combine it all.
Oh, great. Well, thank you very much for having us tonight. This was helpful.
Yeah, thanks a lot for
Thank you.
presenting. This offers a lot of sort of interesting ways to explore the lands in Cohasset and keep them going. So I appreciate everybody's time, and welcome aboard, Katie, as a actual staffer. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, thank you guys. You have a very hard volunteer position. It's a job, and I think Jeff and Sarah were once
Right.
commission members, right? So
Yep.
they know.
Before we
What
call
did
it
the commission
Commissioner,
do tonight, guys, in your experience? Did the commission do okay tonight based on what you guys saw?
Did a fine job.
Okay, good.
but before we call Commissioner Bell or Commissioner Berrigan, did you have any other comments?
No, I just found it very useful to hear the presentation and hear ways that we can collaborate. I hope to see that develop further.
Great.
Yeah, we're here to help. So, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for your
as well.
time.
All righty. Good night,
Awesome.
guys. Thank
Okay.
you.
Have a
Guys,
nice night, guys.
Night.
thanks for coming. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Awesome.
All right, Charlotte. So we have some updates. If we could hustle through them sort of fast. I'm
Sure.
really running out of steam. So
Oh, did I lose Chris? Did Chris jump off? Oh. We don't have a quorum right now. Hold on. Let me see if Chris can connect. If not, I'll just push it off to February. Just gonna call him real quick. I did have one 48-hour issue for you guys, but if we can't bring it up tonight.
Hey.
Oh, hey, Chris, sorry. We were still going to quickly go through updates. Did you have time to jump back on, or do you want me to just save them for next time?
Oh, geez, sorry.
Sorry.
Right back.
All right, thanks. Okay, yeah, he'll jump back on. I'll try to make it quick.
yeah, forget. I'm sorry. I'm just running out of steam.
Do you want me to just start? I mean, nobody's on the call. We technically don't have a quorum right now, but
I mean, let's give him 30
give me a
seconds.
second. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, can't check out until we've had a motion to adjourn.
I know, I
We
know.
can't even
just waiting
adjourn
for those
without,
motions.
without a quorum. We can't adjourn.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We're gonna be stuck
exactly.
here all night.
Right.
I hope not. Yeah, I'm glad CCT was able to come and talk to you guys. It's just I really can't answer why the town had never done anything. I think because we've leaned so heavily on CCT and trustees that there's really been no program of land management as far as I can find. So yeah, we're changing that.
Welcome back, Chris. We need you to adjourn anyway.
Sorry, Chris.
The four of us are going to have to sit here for the next 2 weeks until we could adjourn when you came back.
I
So-
will be very quick because I know we all
Felt
want
too much like a work meeting, and I thought it was just over.
Yeah, when everyone says thank you, good night. Yeah. I'll try to be very quick with this. So construction updates, 74 Black Horse Lane. They pretty much finished the refurbished barn turned into a home. They're finishing the utilities and landscaping. They're going to finish restoration plantings in the spring. So he's moving along with that. 6 Grace Drive, which was previously known as 221 Hull Street. I was out there a few times within the last month to inspect the rain garden that was going in. If you guys remember, that project had some trees that were wrapped around the border. So I did tell them to be very mindful of that and keep all the roots covered and not disturb those. I do still need to call the engineer just to make sure that he was okay, because him and I went out on separate dates. 32 Orchard, this is a pool project. The owner has been extremely communicative with me and getting me out there to look at all the infiltration. There were some slight modifications on site, but they all were okay with me and the engineer. 83 Spring Street, that one, they are actively working on digging for the foundation. They just finished the heavy stuff and they're going to be pouring that soon for inspection. I issued the amended order. It will be recorded before he cuts down any of those dead trees along the driveway. There are some issues, to make a very long story short, with the driveway. So when I have more information about that, I will bring that in full to you guys. 16 Conehassett Trail, that was a minor addition project, partially in the 100. I just inspected their erosion controls and they started work this week. 205 Atlantic Ave, I just wanted to put a plug that I will be visiting that site at some point, hopefully in the next few weeks. I've just driven by it so many times. I'm like, ooh, I really need to walk that. So I will make it out there and see if there's any issues or if it just looks like a mess, because obviously they're doing a lot out there. In terms of other updates, what I'm going to try to do is tentatively, I will plan for February 27th to bring an updated fee schedule to you guys with updated costs, clarifications, all that good stuff. I do have to advertise in the newspaper 14 days in advance. That's why I've been editing that. And then once I'm done with that, I will submit a newspaper notice. And then that's just a regular vote. So like, it doesn't need to go to select board or town meeting or anything like that. You guys would just review it and talk about it and then vote on it. I'm working with Open Space Committee on, they want to put in a community garden. There is that parcel that used to be a nursery at the corner of 3A and Pond Street that has potential. And since MassDOT and the town will be improving sidewalk capability, accessibility, and all that good stuff with ADA compliance in that particular area, it definitely hits a lot of the checkpoints of a really good, well-rounded potential project site. I've talked a little bit about this with EEA.
I didn't think the sidewalk was going up that far. Is it?
Oh, it is. Yeah, it's going. It's going from 70 feet up from Sawyer Street all the way into Situate on Henry Turner Bailey Road, and then the town separately will be filing something at some point to do sidewalks along Pond Street at that intersection further down to King. So that whole area in the next few years will be highly accessible, not just via car, but bikes, walkability. So that hits a lot of the grant, eligibility checkpoints in terms of making sites that are accessible to all parties and people, ages, disabilities. There are other parcels, obviously. There's right in front of Wheelwright that we could look at for a community garden because the area is already an open field. I just know the soils aren't that great over there, so they'd have to be raised garden beds. The parcel at the corner of Pond and 3A has a lot of wetlands, so that might be something that we'd have to look at and see which site is easier to permit. But I'm definitely looking at a grant for that, so I'll keep you guys in the loop. And then there was recently in the reg world in Massachusetts, there was an economic development bill passed by our people. And as part of that economic development bill, it gave permits a 2-year extension. So just to clarify with you guys, I have been checking permits monthly for expiration dates and sending letters when I can when their permits are expiring. But given this recent law that was passed in November, any permit that is active between January 1st, 2023 and January 1st, 2025 automatically gets a 2-year extension. So any permit we've issued that's been active, and that actually revived some expired permits from 2020. So I'm just being mindful of that. And yeah, just wanted to let you guys know that that's a thing. So just with permit expirations, any permit we've issued up until January 5th, 2025, and that 2-year tolling period gets an automatic 2 years added to their permit. And then land alteration bylaw, I have not had the chance to look into these yet, but as you guys know, the planning board modified their land alteration bylaw as part of a lot of their zoning and planning changes at town meeting this December. So in doing that, they have made the ledge stuff stricter. So other than maybe the location for a house foundation, driveways and anything else will need to most likely be subject to a special permit from planning board. So it does affect several permits that we've already issued that have not yet gotten a building permit. I'll just quickly list them off, but I'm happy to talk about it another time. 31 Dolan Lane, 26 Lamberts Lane, 42 Rustway, 35 Nichols, 94 Black Horse Lane, and potentially 502 North Main and 807 CJC. So there are projects that involved ledge that we had approved at the time under the old bylaw, but they haven't yet gotten a building permit, so that this law has been approved. They are now subject to the new regulations, and they will have to go back to planning board and get approval for most likely for all of those. Those are the ones that I just flagged that had ledge.
And there's that one in front of us right now too, that.
Yeah.
The raise and rebuild, I put my hands up in air
Yeah.
quotes. That would be ledge that they're knocking out for that driveway.
I think for driveways, yes. I think you now have to go back to planning board. And they also took out the language that said unless a project is subject to a building or stormwater permit. So that was a huge loophole, and they took that language out. So they've definitely made their land alteration bylaw for ledge stuff stricter. And I don't know the full details, Tom. I'm not sure if you've heard that through the grapevine too, or if you have more information for that, but just wanted to let you know that that's a thing. It's affecting some permits that may have to go back to planning board, and depending on planning board's review, those changes will probably have to come back to us in some way, shape, or form. So there's just a little backlog stuff to take care of. And then bylaw stuff. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, I don't think they've written regulations around this yet. It's still just a bylaw. Bylaw. So they need, I know that Tom Callahan did a few all-nighters or all weekers or all monthers to write regulations, and I'm not sure that he actually got to the land alteration.
Okay, so it's just a
And if he
bylaw.
did, and if he did, it would be typical in Calanese, redundant, perhaps contradictory.
He wrote our wetlands and stormwater bylaws and
I know.
regs for reference.
I know.
So, yeah.
I know that town council had to spend an awful lot of time rewriting those regulations he wrote because they had so many inconsistencies, redundancies, and plain deviations from the bylaw itself. So, but they passed. They were able to correct them sufficiently and check them against case law, so that they were able to pass them, their last.
They approved the AG.
Everything passed.
I don't know if they've been approved by the AG at Valerio. They've been submitted for sure. Usually it takes them 3 months plus or minus to get back to the town.
Regulations don't have to go.
Oh, no, regulations, no, the bylaw, like the land alteration bylaw changes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think those are still pending Attorney General approval from town meeting in December.
Okay.
And then the last one was, I know I had this on my schedule, but eventually when I can get the smaller projects taken care of, I will be looking at our bylaws. There is a lot of language, to make a long story short, that needs to be in our bylaw that is only in our regs. I've been repeatedly told that by town council and of course by lawyers like Adam Brodsky and Jeff DeLisi saying, well, that's just in your regs and it's not in your bylaw, so it doesn't have as much of a standing. I'm like, okay, but so yeah, thank you for the free advice. I'm now going to move all that language into the bylaws. So there's a lot that needs to happen with that. I did do a really urgent change listing the 200-foot riverfront area in our wetlands bylaw because it was not originally listed. It was only defined. So as a protected area, we now protect everything under the Wetlands Protection Act now in our bylaw. And obviously in addition to isolated wetlands and isolated land subject to flooding. So anyway, so I will be working on that as soon as I can. I'm really hopeful once I can get new admin support and offload a lot of those administrative tasks back to, the admin, I can focus on a lot of this stuff. So that's honestly why it's been on hold for at least 2 years at this point. I've been trying to update these bylaws and regs for 2 years now. So anyway, and then I just had one 48-hour update. I'll be really brief on this because I don't want to keep us any later than 9:40 something. There is a tree person in town, and you probably know the name. I am not going to say the name right now. My patience is done with this contractor who does a lot of work in town. He has repeatedly come into the office, asked me for things. He has misinterpreted what I said or just blatantly ignored it. And I've also gotten testimony from property owners through the grapevine that he is saying that I'm saying it's okay to cut down dead trees and you don't need to come to conservation. That is not true. I have never said that. And I have always told him, unless a tree is an ultimate safety hazard that's literally about to fall on a house, there is no process and you have to come to the Conservation Commission. So I'm not happy with the fact that this person is potentially using my name to promote his business. And I am in the process of considering sending him fines every time I see that. And just wanted to let you guys know that, like, I'm a very patient person. I'm a nice person. I'm a gentle giant, but I do not appreciate someone using my name in false pretense to promote his business. Every time I see that sign everywhere, it now makes my blood boil. So I'm not going to talk about it anymore. But yeah, the next time he comes into my office, I will be giving him a final warning that the laws that the commission has laid down, the state has laid down, and the advice that I have given him has finally reached its, like, I'm not going to be discussing it anymore with him. So any further violations, I will be doing a dual violation where I would be sending it to the contractor and to the owner. So.
And if you
Thank
want
you
to
guys
talk
for
about that
what I'm
one-on-one,
talking about.
like offline in the next couple of days, Charlotte, I'm happy to chat with you about
Yep, that honestly, yeah, happy to talk about it, Valeria, but I'm sure you guys know which person I'm referring to. You see the signs.
Have you expressed this to them in writing somehow?
Nope. Actually, I just missed him, unfortunately. I was working remote on Tuesday when he came in on Tuesday to see me for a project that I'm, working with the homeowner on. And yeah, I will be having a chat with him. I'm also supposed to walk.
I would say why wait until the next violation? If you found this to be the case, then just send him
I could
something
do that, yeah.
like an email or something for that and just say.
There's actually there's 2 violations that I have to send around Black Horse Lane and Summer Street where you see the sign of who cut down the trees. So, yeah.
Oh, and you can send him a warning about sort of, I don't know, not misinterpreting, but saying that you authorize something, whatever, and CC town council on it, and that will scare him a bit too.
Yeah, I mean,
and just clarify.
Yeah.
Not okay. Whatever.
Yep.
Whatever he's saying, just make it put in writing. It's as a clarification, so that you don't have to
Absolutely.
wait for a violation to.
Yeah.
Yeah. If he does it again.
Yeah. I
much
mean,
easier.
he has come to me multiple times asking questions. He should very well know what he can and can't do. And the fact that he just consistently continues to do as he pleases and lying to property owners that I said things were okay. I draw the line at that. No. I think our commission has been more than fair with giving people the benefit of the doubt, but someone like this who's repeatedly ignored, disrespected, and even lied about what I've told him and what the commission is, yeah, we're done. And in the future, I will definitely be creating, after the hazard tree policy and all that good stuff, I really want to make this ASAP. I want to do like a do's and don'ts of conservation that's just used as a simple guide. And I want to post that and I want to send it to professionals and contractors and everything and just saying, hey, this is an informal guide of like what is and it was not allowed. And if you have any questions, contact the conservation department, So like, I really want to make it very clear what you can do and what you can't do in the buffer zones and just make that black and white in a nice big chart. No crazy descriptions, just here's what you can do, here's what you can't do. For all information, refer to the Cohasset regulations. So that would hopefully be really helpful. A lot of new property owners have requested that. And arborists have actually requested that from me. And I said, I'm happy to do that for you guys. If that can curtail the violations, then great. So, but yeah, sorry. I didn't mean to be so mad, but I'm like, I'm like, yo.
No, I get it. Yeah. I mean, like Chris said, I get it in writing sooner rather than later.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will be having a chat with him in person and sending him something in writing. So. Yeah. And moving forward, any violations where I see that sign, I will pursue violations with him separately in addition to the property owner, as long as you guys authorize it.
All right, guys.
Cool,
Is that
that's it.
is that it?
One more item.
Oh, sure.
sorry?
Go ahead, Tom.
It'll just take a second. I just want to give you a heads up that I'm going to make a proposal to the Conservation Trust to build a walkway in the William Salt Marsh. Charlotte and I have talked briefly about the damage that's been done to the marsh right across from Sandy Beach, and it needs to be addressed. And so I've developed a plan to partner with them to do this, not as a commissioner, but as a private citizen. So hopefully we'll be able to move this along. And they own the property. It's the William Salt Marsh that would be traversed, and hopefully then a fence put across the trail that's been degraded for decades. There's quite a large bald patch out there, and people every year try to walk around the bald patch, so it grows incrementally each year along its periphery. So it seems like the best way
to avoid the mud, right?
Yeah, exactly. Once it gets mucky, then they walk around it. Then that becomes mucky, and the next season or later in that season, people will do it. I've got pictures and stuff of that, but I won't. You'll see them sooner or later. But I just wanted to.
You'd have to recuse yourself, Tom.
Yes, obviously.
Well, let us know how we can support you in that, though, Tom. You know.
Yeah, well, I'll send you an envelope. You can put a check in it.
All right.
And yeah, a resident actually approached me about this a few years ago, and I had given him the, the resources of who to contact in town. There were two people that had brought this to my attention a few years ago. And yeah, the pictures look really bad. Like people walk all over that marsh, and it's a very sensitive area.
So Charlotte, I contacted them.
Oh yeah,
and,
yeah.
They've agreed that we should work together to try to further this. I've already talked to the what is it? Situate Docks and Moorings, or Moorings and Docks.
Oh, that guy. Yeah.
Yeah, he's gonna give us a free quote.
Nice.
And a 10% discount if he builds it. So
And CPC funds potentially, you could look into that.
yeah, there's a lot of potential sources of revenue here, but obviously they're hard to get. There's a lot of competition for them. State grants, though, a restoration of the trail that has been degraded would certainly be hopefully part of the project.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, flipping through from 2019 and near map to it's very obvious.
Can you share it, Chris?
It is.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I've got some photos right here that I'll
Yeah,
show.
go ahead.
Give me the screen. Okay, let's see here. Okay, you see this? Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Let me zoom in on that.
Yeah.
A little bit. So you can see the trail here. It's not too bad up here until you get to this mucky area, and it really gets pretty ugly.
Yeah.
And I was out there today to take some pictures. This is what it looks like on the ground. And you can see then there are trails that are growing around it. This is one trail that's been abandoned. This is another trail that's been abandoned. This one was developed just this summer. So it's a real problem.
I didn't even know there was a trail there. I didn't even know people cut through
People have
there.
made them.
I didn't either.
I'm sorry. You were all talking and I missed all of it.
Oh, sorry. I said I didn't even know people cut through there, honestly. I didn't know there was a trail there at all.
Yeah. It's a fairly popular trail, actually. It's the only way to get out to the sandbar. And so I've developed plans for 3 potential walkways here, and I'm leaning towards this one. It's the shortest one, therefore the least expensive, also has the least impact on the marsh. Fortunately, it's oriented north-south, so sunlight's not going to be too much of an issue here. I guess DEP wants to see a 1.5 to 1 ratio these days. If it's 4 feet wide, they want to see a 6 foot tall structure, which I would hope to get a variance for.
All right, we'd have to discuss that later.
Tom,
with
why not
Brendan.
go over what's already damaged?
Well, first of all, it'd be circuitous. And it's part of it's on CCT property, part of it's on town land, and part of it's on Sandy Beach Association land. So all of a sudden you're dealing with 3 different entities, and the cleanest one is to stay on CCT land if they allow this, and they would be the applicant.
And there would be something to bar passage from what's currently used as access.
Yeah, just extend the snow fence. It's on both sides, and there's an opening there and a conservation trust sign.
Also signage, yeah, like definitely, like as long as it's environmentally aesthetically pleasing, like more signage just saying no walking through the marsh is allowed, stuff like that.
Yeah, right. And
Yeah, definitely restoring this marsh should be something that I think would be really beneficial, and it would show the, you know, the pros and the cons of obviously you put the boardwalk in, but then you restore this whole, you know, area, because it's
Right.
pretty devastating looking at that top photo.
yeah, it really is. And it's just it's getting worse all the time. When I go out there, I take a different path every time through the marsh itself, so I don't so I do as little damage as permanent damage as possible. But I think it'd be much more appropriate to have a walkway out here with a platform at the end, so that you can access the marsh. This is kind of it's all kind of distorted. This is the unexpanded side, so you can see that everything's pretty flat here. But to have some sort of platform at the end and down onto the sand. Also, a kayak slide, so as people are dragging their kayaks across that trail as well. So that's kayaks, canoes, coolers, you name it, dogs. So if there is an appropriate way to get there, I think that first of all, more people will use Little Harbor recreationally and do far less damage.
Might even potentially deter some future property owners from building their own docks if there's a way they can publicly access the, you know, the sand flats, you know?
It could be.
It won't stop people from wanting their boats on their own private properties to increase their property values, but, you know, at the very least, it may or may not deter people thinking about potentially putting in docks for kayak use or something if there's already a publicly accessible option.
Yeah, exactly. So, yes, so I got a
Well, let us know how we can support you and still maintain our ethical
Yep.
yes
perspective, because obviously.
Yeah.
I have to recuse myself now.
Well, Tom just presented it to us. You guys didn't weigh in on the project of whether or not you'd approve it, so let's maybe end it at that.
Stop the recording.
Yeah, no further recording, yeah. Also, depending on how long it takes, new commissioners will join, you know.
Who knows here in terms of, you know, the whole permitting process and whether we can, I don't know whether we can get an ADA variance or not. It sounds like we can. I've already talked to the Architectural Access Board and was given some encouraging news that yes, they do give variances for ADA compliance, because it'd be really hard to do here, you know, building the ramps, especially at the road. There's no sidewalk or anything. So building.
You know where you can get some crushed shells for the entrance.
There you go.
Exactly. Yeah, well, anything to save a buck, right? When it comes time to building it.
Yep.
Okay, and my last heads up is I will be out of the country from February 7th to February 25th. So
hunting belugas again?
No, I'm doing a hiking tour in northern Patagonia with my youngest son for a week, and then I'm going salmon fishing for the next week in some of the fjords there in Patagonia.
Wow.
Sounds
nice. So Tom, that would just mean
26th.
you're gone for the February 6th meeting, but you would potentially be back for the 27th.
Yeah,
Okay, that's fine. Just want to keep track for a quorum.
yeah.
Well, enjoy that trip. That sounds
Sounds like
Yeah,
fantastic.
that sounds
Yeah.
awesome.
Have fun.
Yeah, we're gonna try. You never know. I mean, it's Patagonia, so the weather could be really awful, even though it's the summer, it can be pretty rugged.
Nice.
So good
Tom,
luck.
I'll touch base with you offline about something before you leave on your trip, just because you'll be missing the February 6th meeting.
Okay,
Yep. Yeah, yeah.
all right. So.
All right. Oh yeah,
so I'm
Tom,
looking-
you're
I'm
gonna
looking
be
forward to
missing,
working with Conservation Trust. I mean,
you're gonna be missing the February 6th meeting.
Yeah. Can't talk about it.
Okay, I'm gonna have to be the bad guy. I don't mind.
oh, tell me it's not Rattlesnake Run.
No. Tom, I'll talk to you about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
No, release me.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Have
All
fun,
those in
Tom.
favor?
Aye.
Bye.
Aye. All right, this meeting's closed. Have a nice night, guys.
Yep.
Thank you guys. Have a great night.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you,
Have a good
Charlotte.
Aye.
Thanks.